We were talking earlier about looking back now at Snowden, looking back at Assange, looking back at WikiLeaks, looking now at Ashley Biden's diary. A couple just pleaded guilty to stealing the diary and giving it to Project Veritas. So according to the New York Times, that proves the diary is real. The diary is
my mother will start to worry, and father will be pacing the floor. So really I'd better scurry. Well, maybe just a half a drink more. The neighbors might think, say, what's in this drink? I wish I knew how to break the spell.
I'll take your hat, your hair.
I ought to say no, no, no.
Mind if I move in?
At least I'm gonna say that I tried.
What's the sense of hurting my
I
pride?
really can't stay.
Baby, it's cold outside.
Welcome to the Independent Review, a weekly podcast where we bring you the latest from the world of independent journalism.
Every now and then it gets to me. Maybe it's religion, the moaning and the bitching, lying and the stealing and the cheating politicians coming right at me through the satellite feed. Make this day easy on me.
Welcome to another episode of the Independent Review, live on AM Wakeup's Rumble and Rockfin channels. Let's jump into our fist clip with an interview with Taylor Hudak.
So here we have a very spontaneous meetup with Taylor Hudak. Hey Taylor.
Hey.
And it's amazing that we've met here. We both didn't know that we're going to meet here. We're in Palma de Mallorca, and we're in a conference called the Blockchain Days Conference. But we're not going to talk about the conference, and we're not going to touch the topics of the conference. I just kind of seized the opportunity to grab Taylor and ask her if we can do a spontaneous conversation about some of the recent work that she's been covering, because it's really fascinating. And I want my audience to be exposed to your work and to kind of follow you and know more of what you're doing. So we picked like 3 recent people that you've been interviewing, and if you could share some of those stories of those people so that people can get to know your work. So the first one was Professor Burkhardt.
Yes.
Right? So can you tell us about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, I just want to say it's great to finally meet, because I've been admiring your work from afar, from Twitter, from social media. So it's finally great to be here to talk and discuss some of the work that I have been doing for the past year. But I'm glad that I get the chance to share with your listeners about my interview with Professor Dr. Arne Burkhardt, or Professor Burkhardt, I refer to him. I had the chance to sit down and interview him in April of 2023. The interview came out in full December of 2023. It's a 2.5-hour long interview. It is a very intense interview. The subject matter is quite complex, so it did take quite a bit of time to put it together in post-production. But as many of you may be aware, unfortunately, Professor Burkhardt, who was a German pathologist who was examining the autopsy and biopsy materials in patients who died shortly after vaccination or were very ill shortly after receiving the COVID-19 vaccine or injection. He was examining their biopsy materials, autopsies, as I said. He unfortunately passed away suddenly, unexpectedly, under what many are saying are some unusual circumstances. I won't get into too much depth about that, but he has reportedly died in a tragic accident while he was on a boating trip with his young son. I interviewed him, as I said, April of 2023. He died May 30th of 2023. So it was very shocking to me because when I was interviewing him, he was seemed very well to me, healthy. Of course, I'm not a medical professional, but he was very sharp, very mobile. He was almost 80 years old, but I did not see somebody who was in poor health or would be passing away anytime soon. Amazing. Just from my basic observation. So I was very surprised and saddened by this. And again, the death is being reported as an accident. But this interview, I would encourage all of you to please check it out at thelastamericanvagabond.com. We go through a series of 20 cases, as I said, in which he examined the autopsies and biopsies of people who died shortly after vaccination. We discuss the various staining methods and techniques that he uses, specifically IHC, which is immunohistochemical staining, in which he is able to determine whether or not the spike protein expression in the lesions are caused by the vaccine or the virus. There's a specific test. That's all discussed in detail, as well as what many of these people had suffered from shortly after vaccination. So I would encourage this interview for everybody to watch this interview, but especially if you have family members or friends who are still not understanding that mRNA technology is dangerous. Watch this interview, send it to your friends and family, and I think that we can absolutely expect the same mechanism of harm with all mRNA vaccines, not just the ones that are there for protection against COVID-19 virus. But it is, I think, an important interview that people should watch out for.
It's super important, and I think the fact that so many people took some of your work and spread it onwards from this specific interview just goes to show how important it is, because so many people are impacted by these mRNA products.
They are.
And they're going to continue rolling them out in different shapes and forms now.
Exactly.
It doesn't look like it's the end of it.
No, that's the scary thing, is that it seems that they have already taken steps to implement mRNA technology for flu vaccines, maybe some other medical
or veterinary.
Yes, exactly. Medical interventions. They'll be using this technology, which is inherently dangerous, according to not just Professor Burkhardt, but several other doctors. Another important thing about Dr. Burkhardt's work is that his work substantiated the professional medical hypotheses of several doctors and scientists who were warning about the potential harms of the mRNA injections in late 2020, early 2021. So this really put those doctors and scientists on solid ground and provided the irrefutable proof that these are dangerous injections. So check out that interview, share it with those who may be open to hearing a different perspective on this.
We'll add a link to it in the tweet or Rumble, wherever I'm going to put this. Okay, and next up, the work you've been doing with Dr. Bhakti.
Yes.
Sukrit Bhakti?
Yes, Sukrit Bhakti.
Okay, tell us about that.
Yes, wonderful man, wonderful doctor. It's been a pleasure to meet him through all of this. One of the things about the COVID crisis is that while it was so unfortunate, there was so much death, so much economic, financial turmoil. What came out of it was these connections that we have been able to build. I don't want to sound too idealistic here and not discount the fact that this has been a horrible catastrophe that we all have had to witness and go through. But he was also, by the way, a friend, a colleague of Professor Burkhardt, and Dr. Bhakti was one of those doctors in 2020 who was warning about the potential dangers of the mRNA injections. He took it upon himself to educate and inform the public, and that came at a great risk. Yes. In fact, he was charged on 2 counts related to anti-Semitism and trivialization of the Holocaust in Germany. He was found not guilty on both of those counts. However, in Germany, a prosecutor can appeal a not guilty conviction. The prosecutor in this case has done so. So it does seem that the case is still progressing, moving forward. I've been covering it extensively since 2021 or 2022. So yes, if you follow my work, you'll be able to see some updates on that case. I've also provided a broad overview case timeline, which is available on the Doctors for COVID Ethics website. By the way, that website has a number of other really good resources and information related to COVID, vaccines, and early treatment as well. So that's a good resource, but this really goes to show that those who speak out against the establishment will be targeted, because all along the case was really not about anti-Semitism. It was about discrediting a doctor who advocated for the health and well-being of the general public by warning them that these mRNA injections are dangerous.
Right. And if you really dig deeper into it, you'll see how ridiculous the claims that he is an anti-Semite, which I've done, so you're welcome to go ahead and check it out. Okay, and lastly, tell us about your journey with Julian Assange, because you have been covering everything related to Julian for a while now. I've been following you. You traveled to London
Yes,
to
quite a
cover
bit
the
to cover it.
trial and the appeal. And so tell us maybe even some inside information about your relationship with the Assange family and whatever you can tell us.
Right. So fortunately, the case has now come to an end. Assange is no longer facing threat of extradition to the United States, no longer facing prosecution in the United States. He is a free man living in Australia now with his family. So this was a great outcome that we had all wanted. Of course, the ideal situation would be for the United States to drop the charges against him. They did not do so, but what happened was that the United States Department of Justice and Assange's legal team, as well as negotiators behind the scenes, worked together to ensure a best possible plea deal in this case. So Assange ended up pleading guilty to one count of espionage for the receipt and publication of classified material. And so, he pled guilty to that charge. He was sentenced to time served. So the 5 years that he served in London's Belmarsh prison was considered the punishment for the crime. So he was able to be set free after he attended a court hearing in the Northern Mariana Islands, which is in the Pacific.
Near Australia?
Somewhat near Australia. It's on the route from London to Australia. So he stopped there, pled guilty, and then the case ended, and then he was then transported to his home country of Australia. But I've been covering the case intensely since February of 2020, which is kind of ironic, because February of 2020 was actually when the first part of the extradition hearings began. Then they resumed in September and October of 2020 in London. And then there was a series of legal back and forth, a series of appeals between the two parties, and both sides were now able to come together and reach a plea agreement. And one of the really key aspects here, and that many people sort of are confused about, and I understand why, is that Assange is pleading guilty to this one count of espionage does not actually set a legal precedent, because it wasn't a court decision. However, his lawyers and other legal experts are stating that the United States prosecution against him does. So it does open the door for the United States DOJ to prosecute more journalists, more individuals for this type of activity. So the precedent was always there. It's not a result of Assange's choice to engage in this plea agreement, but it's because the United States started this case to begin with, that there is sort of that risk that other journalists could be charged, prosecuted for espionage just for receiving classified material, which is something that journalists do all the time, and we need that to
continue doing our
what
work.
we do. Exactly.
That's right. And I heard Stella Assange, Julian's wife, saying after the release, when they actually arrived to Australia, that this, in her eyes, this is not over for freedom of journalism, and she expects and encourages journalists all over the world to continue putting pressure on the U.S. government to drop the charges. Otherwise, we are all in risk. And I think she's right.
Yes, there has been some discussions or talk, I'd say publicly, about the potential for a presidential pardon to formally exonerate Assange. I don't know if that's the right legal term, but to just pardon him for this so-called crime, which is really journalism. So yes, that is one possibility with this case, but the best outcome here, again, is that he's no longer in Belmarsh prison, because this is one of the worst prisons in the UK. It's an all-male prison. It houses some of the worst offenders, violent criminals. Assange was being held there for 5 years without charge. He was being held on remand. And that's also quite unusual in extradition cases, because the whole point is to get the individual from one country to another to face justice. and get them there in a healthy state, in a safe manner. And by putting someone in prison, your risk of death or injury increases just because of your environment. So it was always unusual that he was being held in prison for such a long time for an extradition case. And this is not just my opinion. This was stated by former UN Special Rapporteur on Torture, Nils Melzer. So there are many aspects and elements to this case. I covered it for Activism Munich. It is an English and German bilingual publication on YouTube. All of my video reports are there dating back to 2020. But all of us welcomed the decision.
Great. Okay, so Taylor, where should people follow you to get more of your work?
Yes, so I do actually have a website. I need to update it though, but you can check it out. It's taylorhudak.hu. You could also follow my Telegram channel. I actually post there the most with regard to all of my social media. My Telegram is Taylor Hudak Media. So check that out. I'm also on Twitter @_Taylor Hudak and on Instagram @JournalistTaylor. So that's where you can follow me. And my work is also published on The Last American Vagabond. And
Which are doing a great job.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And TheLastAmericanVagabond.com. Do check out the Arna Burkhart video. Share it with those you know and those you care about and spread this important information because that's exactly what Arna wanted. And it was his last extensive English language interview.
So please act, people. And that's it. I bring you once again like the best resources so that you can continue researching and learning and expanding your consciousness and your knowledge. So thank you so much, Taylor,
Thank
for that.
you.
Ciao.
Thanks. Bye.
Next, we take a look at this clip from Richard Grove of Grand Theft World.
We are advancing on from the stage in Saving Democracy, where Democrats try to remove their duly elected nominee, and advancing towards Democrats panicking and reduced to hoping for another public misstep by Biden, according to the New York Times. Democrats are now at the point where they know they are powerless to stage a coup against Joe Biden, so they're hoping he screws up.
Did you ever watch the debate afterwards?
I don't think I did, no.
He doesn't think he did. Now, many elected Democrats are expressing concern about this answer, too, although it was quite coherent. George Stephanopoulos asking him how he would feel if he ultimately loses to Donald Trump, which polls have suggested he will.
I feel as long as I gave it my all and I did the goodest job as I know I can do. That's what this is about.
As long as he gave it his all and did the goodest job he could do. That's what it's all about, is it?
So when Biden does the sit down with George Stephanopoulos, they really leave out of the picture that George Stephanopoulos is a Rhodes Scholar. Really, he's a Rothschild Scholar because the Rothschilds funded the Cecil Rhodes Scholarships. So like Bill Clinton, there's an Anglo-American establishment guy right there to make sure that like the right perspective of Biden is maintained, and it seems to fall within their agenda, right? Trump's agenda doesn't seem to fall within the Anglo-American agenda, though it does fit within the Anglo-Israeli agenda quite nicely, and he's very popular over there. So there's a lot more to be learned on those topics, but I think we've had substantial enough time and evidence on that topic to show the erosion and degradation. And it's kind of like watching a boxing or wrestling match. Like imagine if you're watching Rocky 1, 2, 3, any of them, and they're like 10 rounds in, and you know, there's the lights out, and then all of a sudden Rocky's dead. He doesn't have a comeback. You would think something suspicious is going on there because there's some actions in between you didn't get to see. Similarly, in this situation, I think that Biden was on the ropes. Biden was knocked out. He's on the canvas. They were counting him out, and then the lights went out, and then when it came back, like somebody shoots Trump in the ear. Was Mike Tyson involved in this? He likes ears. I mean, what is the situation that just like coincidentally on schedule delivers an event that completely takes the media interest off of that other story, which until then, in that week, you heard like that was the main story, all about how the Democrats can't get rid of their own guy and what are they going to do? And they were buying 2 more days. Well, I think they just almost bought a week probably with whatever's gone on. Now, when I say they, I'm not talking about necessarily the person on the roof. I'm talking about the deep state that made the ill security plan for that event. And we're going to discuss that later. And if we could figure that out on this show, I'm pretty sure you understand that the Secret Service has a lot more resources than this show has. So little things like perimeters being set, deviation from the last time Trump spoke at that venue, all sorts of little things can add up to, like when they say, is it negligence or is it deliberate? If you change, if I'm building a building and we cut out a bunch of structure to save money and the building falls down, that's deliberate. You decided to cut out the things that hold the building up. Likewise, if you have a security plan and you deliberately don't put enough personnel for that type of size event or perimeter or number of people, that's deliberate insofar as you can create an opportunity in a crack or a crevice for someone like that to slip through. Now, am I saying that guy slipped through? Not from the evidence that I've seen. It seems a very, very convenient story thus far for one side and one side only, and we'll get into those facts shortly. But I also...
Now, let's take a look at this clip from Charlie Robinson and his interview with Teace Snyder.
Now we can get down to talking to really one of my favorite people that I've met over the last couple of years. He is the host of Conspiracy Synergy. He's a goddamn great filmmaker. Ladies and gentlemen, back on the show, Teace Snyder. Good to see you again, Teace. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. Thanks for having me back on, Charlie. Always great to talk.
Well, listen, I watched your movie. Holdmethemovie.com is the place for people to go. If you want to go check this out, the movie is available for you to watch it. It's this is a value for value situation here as well. So if you are in a position where you have more money than time, please donate some money. If you have more time than money, please invest your time to share the movie with people that you think might find it interesting. And I watched it yesterday, and it's interesting. And I wish you didn't have to make this movie, but it opens up a whole can of worms here. And I'll let you describe it, because it's a sensitive topic. It's a topic that I think, especially where you're from in Canada, is starting to take on a more, I don't know, there's a sinister component to it when the state gets involved in this. And there's a loving peacefulness to it when human beings are involved, but there's something diabolical happens when the government sticks their fingers into this. Can we escape from mere generalizations and let the audience know what we're talking about here?
Yeah, sure thing. So it's a really important point that you made, and it's why I'm really happy to talk to you about it, because you've done the necessary research into the broader phenomena of like large control grids clamping down on human mercy. And that's something that a lot of people wouldn't necessarily think, that mercy can be weaponized. And so talking to someone such as yourself, it's like you're appreciative of that. Now, the film specifically doesn't deal with the bureaucratic reality of how these things are unfolding. It's set in a fictional capacity. And the basic idea of it is that it's about a woman whose job it is to hold and console people who are being voluntarily euthanized. And that's set in a general, like, ambiguous location in the United States deliberately, so that it doesn't get too wrapped up in the particular details of the legislation or the population. And instead, it's just more about the general philosophical concept of what it is to have someone there with you at end of life. And that touches on doctor-assisted dying, palliative care, hospice, end-of-life caregiving. And that's something that really is going to be thrust on all of us at one point or another, whether we're in a bed or whether we're caring for someone who is. And so it's really just the idea that we're supposed to be there with one another. We're supposed to be closer with one another. And yet we exist in these top-down control systems, which have been implemented by design to make us sick over the course of our lives, to make us extraordinarily vulnerable at the end of our lives, and then to basically neglect us. And that's devastating, and it's horrible. And so I wanted to create a film that spoke to all of those realities in an indirect way, so that I could invite people's personal experiences to be a part of the conversation.
Well, mission accomplished. It's a heavy duty movie. It's the type of film that when you get done watching it, you have to kind of you maybe just kind of need to go for a walk a little bit, and process everything that you've seen. It's, I don't know. I wouldn't describe it as a sad movie necessarily. I mean, there's some sad components in it, but it's just an honest look at like the reality of this very fragile life that we have. And everything seems like it's all put together until, maybe at the very end. You mentioned that the state, the state sort of discards people. I mean, it's like the old, Eskimos that you get towards the end of your life and they put you on the little ice sheet, push you off and say, good luck, go off there and die on your own. We've got to protect this tribe. I guess there's always been some sort of, depending on where you are, some cultures treat this very coldly. Others are extremely warm and keep this multi-generational and keep, you grow up, you come back to the family, maybe when you get a little bit older. And there's value in that. How'd you even come across this as a concept or a topic for making films? I mean, you make a lot, you've been making films for a while. I'm just curious about this particular topic. Why this? Why you?
Yeah, sure. So I had the original idea for the film. I was actually spooning with my girlfriend at the time, just lying there. And I got a vivid picture in my own mind of an anthropology textbook that I'd had. And in that, it was a couple of people who had been buried by volcanic ash. And what they'd done in their last moment together was to hold each other. And I thought how beautiful of an idea that would be if that were someone's job. And I just started writing the script the next day, finished it about a month or a month and a half later, made a few minor adjustments along the way. But I wrote it with Hannah Fearman, who's the lead actress, in mind, because she was actually dating the director of photography, who was a friend of mine from film school. And we knew some other people that we'd made short films with, both myself and him. And then we kind of just wanted to get everyone together in a way where we could tell a tender story that touched on a very important theme. And it isn't something that was just in that moment of time. It was something that was going to continue being a story that unfolds in not only the paradigm that we're in, but hopefully one that we're able to create, which is less built around these large institutional systems and more people who actually care, reaching out for one another and being there. That's the idea.
Yeah, there were multiple storylines running through this. And again, I'm not going to try and, I don't want to give anything away. I don't know that what I'm even going to talk about will give anything away, but you've got the end of life component that is obvious, right? It's the theme of it's the point of the movie. But you guys get into a lot of the issues that you have with the medical system in general. And that, I think, is something that people, whether they can relate to the end of life scenario in this, they can most definitely relate to having issues dealing with the medical system and how deeply unfair it is, disconnected from humanity, how it puts you in situations where you have to make decisions that you don't want to make in order to be eligible for state-funded care, and you need care, but you don't really want it to come from them, and you have to do something. And of course, we're all, in my mind, I'm looking at this and I'm going, COVID, like years of this, years of people being pushed into a corner and being forced to make decisions against their own better judgment, maybe even against their own health, autonomy, and having to submit to the state when they didn't want to submit to the state. My assumption is you're pretty anti-state as well, but how did you feel about, that's maybe putting it mildly, but, great job on capturing both of these really important storylines in sort of intertwining them together in a way that doesn't come off preachy. It's just you just watch it and you go, oh yeah. Yeah, I can envision this, I can envision state healthcare doing something like this. So, was that kind of the point, was to sort of talk about this very beautiful side of the end of life, and then the contrast of how dark and shitty things can get once you involve the government?
Yeah, that's definitely a side of it. And like you said, the film sort of touches on a variety of different converging and diverging themes deliberately in an ambiguous way. And I structured it that way because a lot of what goes on in filmmaking, generally speaking, is that a movie will tell you what to think, what to feel, and what to believe. And sometimes that's great. That's a wonderful film, and it's exactly what's needed. But other times it steps on a conversation that's better had in real life. So I wanted to create a narrative structuring that used the assumptions and personal grief and experiences of the viewer in a way in which it would almost be a collaborative story that unfolds in their mind. So that's when I'll have something go near a subject, but I won't necessarily hammer on it. And when you do that, it elicits from the viewer their own personal experience, the things that they've been through, the people that they've lost, the altercations that they've had with the medical system. Like you said, I'm not exactly a fan of the state. I'm an anarchist, and I think that the existence of these systems were created by design to keep humanity behind. And they have worked miraculously. And those of us who have poked our heads out of the cave and are trying to get other people to do the same, it's very difficult to do that when they're being kept sick their entire life. So it is something that deeply touches on the personal way in which these things come to unfold on a very individual level. And if people take the time to watch the film, they'll experience that. And like you said, it's one of those things where you kind of just want to go for a walk after, because it's a guided, therapeutic kind of film in a way in which it helps you understand what's important to you. And then it motivates you to want to be a part of the conversation, because this sort of thing isn't going to go away. And with things like the World Health Treaty and all of that kind of stuff coming down on us, conjoined with grassroots initiatives to try and just be merciful to people at the end of life, that is a hell of a situation that we're facing and will be until we reorient and basically take control of the conversation.
Yeah, the World Health Organization has decided that one of the best ways to come at this world government thing is to create pandemics and situations in which they can declare legally this is a global pandemic, and therefore we now step in and we have authority over all of these countries that have signed on to this. It's diabolical, of course, but you can understand their line of thinking. I mean, if you're trying to create world governance, you could do it that way, and that would definitely be a way to do it. The problem is you have to create endless boogeymen to come and justify this pandemic or whatever it is. And so as we've watched it get a little bit more vague. You know, it's COVID was the pandemic, and then you go, yeah, but also, you know, I mean, climate change and gender ideology, and you go, what are you talking about? This is a pandemic. We're having a gender pandemic? Please elaborate. Use the whiteboard. Take all the time you need. I'd love to see you diagram this, because this sounds like nonsense. And of course it is nonsense, and we recognize this, but you're right. This is something that we need to pay attention to, because this is a story, like your movie is a story about something that happened in that moment in time. But it is most definitely not limited to that moment in time. I think people can watch this movie today. They can watch it 10 years from now, and it will still have that same, the storylines will still be the same. The issues will still be the same. The how you treat people towards the end of their life says a lot about you as a person and a society. Thanks for watching that clip. If you want to hear the entire episode in audio format, just go wherever podcasts are served, search for Macroaggressions, subscribe to the show, and please rate it when you get a chance. Thanks, everybody.
Next, let's take a look at this clip from the Indie News Network with Indy and Reef.
Who are these people? it's really funny. When I was in 7th grade, and that was a lot of years ago, I'm not going to say exactly how many, but if some people know, I had a relatively activist, liberal, lefty teacher that taught me about what happened at Leonard Peltier. And it's something that I've kept my eye on my whole adulthood. And he's been in prison my entire adulthood. And this really details the case of what happened and why he's in prison. All right. He was the leader of the American Indian movement, Leonard Peltier. He's serving 2 consecutive life sentences at the federal penitentiary in Leavenworth for 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Ronald Arthur Williams and Jack Ross Kohler, federal FBI agents.
Gotta be handy with the steel, if you know what I mean. Earn your keep.
The agents were killed during a shootout between the FBI and AIM on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation in South Dakota on June 26, 1975. The denial of Peltier's parole request is a continuation of the government vendetta against the 79-year-old activist for a crime he never committed. The World Socialist website denounces the Parole Commission's decision and calls on workers and youth throughout the world to demand his immediate release, which we do. The shootout at Pine Ridge was the result of U.S. government repression and law enforcement provocations against Native Americans that reached a high point in 1973 after AIM organized the occupation of the town of Wounded Knee, South Dakota. Peltier, who was born in Grand Forks, North Dakota, and grew up on the Turtle Mountain Indian Reservation, became active in Native American social and political causes after he moved to Seattle in 1965. He joined AIM in 1972 after he learned of factional tensions at Pine Ridge. By the time he traveled to Wounded Knee in 1975 to deliver supplies to the occupiers, he had already been framed up for attempted murder of a police officer during an AIM protest outside the federal building in Milwaukee. He was later acquitted of this charge. They like to frame them up. According to government reports, the 2 FBI agents, Williams and Kohler, were killed after pursuing a red pickup or van at high speeds onto the Pine Ridge Ranch of the Jumping Bull family, where AIM members and other Indians had encamped. It turned out that the vehicle they were chasing was a white over orange Chevy Suburban with 3 Native Americans in it, including Leonard Peltier.
So what you're saying is he fit the description?
Well, not just fit the description. He was in the vehicle.
Where have we heard that before?
No, he was in the vehicle. The agents were driving separate unmarked cars and got out of their vehicles with guns drawn while the Suburban also stopped and the occupants got out. A gunfight involving handguns and AR-15 assault rifles ensued, with Native Americans from the camp joining in. That's a heavy statement. I don't know what...
47 fucking shooters.
Government documents allege that there were 47 shooters in all, including Peltier. But they're sure that it was him. The FBI maintained that after both agents sustained serious wounds, an individual who was a Native American approached and fatally shot them both at close range with a high-powered rifle. Following the shootout, Peltier and several others fled to Canada. On December 22, 1975, he was named to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list. And on February 6, 1976, he was arrested along with Frank Blackhorse by the Royal Canadian Mounted Police at the Small Boys Reserve and Small Boy Camp Hinton in Alberta, Canada.
Alberta.
He was then transported. Yep. He was then transported to Calgary and then taken to the Ocala prison farm in Vancouver, British Columbia. In December 1976, so like almost a year later, 10 months later, he was extradited to the U.S. from Canada based on documents supplied by the FBI, which were later shown to contain false information derived from coerced testimony. Man, where have we heard this before, Julian Assange? What?
So many times.
Okay.
So many times.
He was charged with executing 2 agents and put on trial in Fargo, North Dakota, not North Carolina, Fargo, North Dakota, where the government expected a supportive jury after the FBI launched a campaign to scare Fargo residents into thinking that the AIM would descend on the town during the trial and carry out a massacre. That almost sounds like Chris Matthews. That almost sounds like Chris Matthews scaring the shit out of people about them being hangings in Central Park when Bernie Sanders was about to become the nominee. It's very similar type of fearmonger language. SWAT teams were sent in to guard the jury 24 hours a day.
Jury.
Crazy. The jury conviction of Peltier on April 18, 1977 was the product of a U.S. government conspiracy. The trial included federal prosecutors hiding evidence that exonerated Peltier. The FBI threatened and coerced witnesses into lying who later recanted their testimony. The ballistics evidence that the FBI claimed linked Peltier to the crime was disrupted by experts, but this information was not disclosed during the trial. When the government's original case against Peltier fell apart after these facts came to light, it abruptly changed the charges to aiding and abetting whoever did kill the agents on the grounds that he was one of dozens of people present when the shootout occurred. And we believe that he was, but Leonard has maintained his innocence consistently over the decades. In 1999, he told CNN correspondent that I didn't kill those agents. I didn't see who killed those agents. And if I did know, I'm not telling, but I don't know, and that's the point. Peltier said he fired shots during the gun battle, but I know I didn't hit them. I know I didn't. Every legal attempt by Peltier and his attorneys to overturn his wrongful conviction has been denied by the U.S. court system. Go figure. A previous parole request in 2009 was also denied. Meanwhile, campaigns for clemency from Democrat Bill Clinton in 2001 and a commuted sentence from Barack Obama in 2016 were, of course, denied just before each of them left office. Because they're fucking assholes that serve the same machine as the Republican fucking douchebags, and we're going to talk about all that later. They're no friend to anybody, but we all know that here. At every stage, a campaign by FBI agents was mounted to demand that Peltier be kept behind bars. Ridiculous. The deep state doesn't exist, right, folks? Peltier will be eligible for another parole hearing in June 2026, according to a parole commission representative, although he said 2039. Responding to the decision on Tuesday, Peltier's attorney, Kevin Sharp, said in a statement, quote, "Today's announcement continues the injustice of this long ordeal for Leonard Peltier. This decision is a missed opportunity for the U.S. to finally recognize the misconduct of the FBI and send a message to Indian country regarding the impacts of the federal government's actions and policies of the 1970s, which have now been well documented and released. Hoover's dead. All these agents are mostly dead or long since retired, but none of these people can get any kind of restorative justice. It's beyond disgraceful." In a statement, FBI director, remember appointed by Donald Trump because nothing changes between administrations, Christopher Wray claimed, quote, "No amount of prison time will ever change the facts surrounding the murders of Special Agents Kohler and Williams." That's right. Nothing will ever change the facts. But yet you continue to hold this guy in prison when you can't prove that he did the shoot. Well aware that he has been systematically denied his basic rights, Wray then went on to gaslight and assert that the political prisoner has been afforded due process time and again.
Whatever the fuck you say.
Paul O'Brien, executive director of Amnesty International USA, which had representatives at Peltier's trial in 1977 and has long campaigned for his freedom, said keeping him locked up is a human rights travesty, which it is. Quote, "Not only are there ongoing unresolved concerns about the fairness of his trial, he spent nearly 50 years in prison, is approaching 80, and is suffering from chronic health problems." So that's a total good reason to keep him locked up and spending all kinds of money of the public to keep him imprisoned and not getting the adequate care and away from his family, right? Insane. So he also wrote a statement out that I brought with me. And this was published in workers.org. And this published yesterday morning. And I believe it was the 1 minute statement. But this way, we can hear what he had to say. Hope is a hard thing here, but I always hold hope in you, my people. Pay attention. The parole decision on July 11th may show you what injustice truly means to this nation and whom it was meant for. He meant June 11th. Living in lockdown, time is twisted into something that has nothing to do with minutes, hours, or years. They've taken what little freedom I have outside this box. Art, gone. Ceremony, gone. Yet they will never take the spirit of a sun dancer. I've never given them my integrity. I remain undestroyed. I'm counting on you if this decision does not go my way. I always need your prayers. I need you to demand that this country finally commit one act of justice. And not force him to take some shit-ass guilty plea that fucking is a half measure just to let him out, by the way. He says, my attorney assures me that the battle is not over until it's over. She will not back down. I'm counting on you to not back down. My time is running out here with no medical care. Thanks, Leavenworth. I do not fear death returning to Mother Earth's womb, but I do not want to die in lockdown. In my solitude, my mind often returns to Raymond Yellow Thunder. The profound tragedy of Raymond's murder sparked change in our people and showed them who the American Indian movement is. Raymond was a hardworking man. When he came into town to give money to his sisters, it was not enough for the Hare brothers to humiliate Raymond, strip him, and parade him around an American Legion dance. Raymond was shoved into the trunk of a car and died the next day. The Hare brothers were charged with second-degree manslaughter and released with no bail.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. Raymond's sisters were distraught that even that small charge may not stick. The authorities would not release the autopsy report. They wouldn't allow Raymond's sisters to see his body. The sisters sought help from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, the BIA, the tribal government, and private attorneys. In desperation, they turned to the American Indian movement. AIM members are spirit warriors, not merciless savages. We organized 200 carloads of people and demanded justice. With dignity, we demanded justice. Sheriff's deputies, state troopers, and FBI agents agreed that serious charges should be filed against the Hares and that the local police chief should be dismissed. Indigenous people started holding their heads up after that victory. They started speaking out against abuses by the BIA and tribal government and white ranchers profiting off their land. We must not allow Raymond's fate to befall others. He says, again, this is Leonard Peltier in a letter to his tribe. My mother published yesterday. My mother used to ask with dismay, why is it so bad to be Indian? I find myself wondering why they hate us so. We will triumph over the misguided hate of others. Never ever forget who you are. We are the first people. Mother Earth herself fires the blood that runs through our veins. Protect each other, protect Mother Earth for future generations, and stand with oppressed peoples everywhere. Remember that true strength does not reside in holding power over others. Strength comes from living out of a place of humility and integrity, inspiring others to find their unique strengths. Oppression is rising, running like black mold through every facet of society. We must stand together and let society know that Indigenous lives are not cheap. The lives of our oppressed brothers and sisters are not cheap. All people are worthy of basic human dignity. Colonialism has all but destroyed us. We must do nothing less than transform society into a place where human beings are not disposable. If you do not weep if I'm not granted parole, cry freedom. Coalesce yourselves, galvanize your relationships, establish alliances. In the power of our people, we find strength. Hold your head up high. It's not over until it's over. In the spirit of Crazy Horse, Doksha, Leonard Peltier. Shit, man.
Mm-hmm. 80-year-old man. 80 years old.
Why?
Right to jail, right away.
Yeah, KYE so fucked up and sadistic. It's it is beautiful. I'm glad we brought it. I'm not sure how many people are even going to read that. At least on a stream, and I'm glad that at least we did. Yeah, a little heavy. Sorry. I know that Misty has been incredibly vocal about keeping the pressure on, and she was organizing even during the final weeks of before Julian was released, organizing phone call campaigns and postcard campaigns to try to drum up more support and to try to petition to grant parole. And it doesn't make any sense. Like, we live in such a weird world. Like, the Accord Lord just dropped some cash on there, and want to give a shout out and a thank you to everyone else who's done that. And if you want to join that group, if you're able to, we really appreciate it. There's some ways to do that there. Cash.app/$ Indie News Network, or just the $ Indie News Network on your phone. Patreon, PayPal, Rumble. Jacqueline Jack is back on Patreon this week. She had some kind of thing with her credit card got hacked. We can't stand when that happens. I'm so sorry. We're glad to have you back. Thank you. Rumble.com/C/Indie News Network, INDIE.
Next, we have this clip from Rachel Blevins and her interview with Fiorella Isabella.
Now, joining me now to discuss is journalist and geopolitical analyst Fiorella Isabella. Fiorella, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today.
Thank you for having me. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too. And I know that you're over there in Moscow, but I did want to ask you about some of the things that are affecting, well, I guess both the US and maybe Russia in the long term. And that is that Trump has officially picked his running mate, who is J.D. Vance. And he's getting a lot of applause, I've noticed, for being critical of the conflict in Ukraine and the ongoing US support that is enabling it. But if you read deeper into it, it seems like Vance just wants the U.S. to pull support from Ukraine, pull back on tensions with Russia, so that they can then focus on China instead. What do you make of this pick, and were you surprised by it at all?
Well, he could have gone worse. I think this pick is trying to appeal to this sort of populist message that Trump has positioned himself to seem like he has as an outsider, right? A lot of people consider him an outsider. I don't think he is actually an outsider. He has been president before, and he didn't drain the swamp. He literally put in Mike Pompeo, a bunch of CIA operatives in his cabinet. And he also, of course, didn't pardon Julian Assange. He went and continued Obama's wars. So he didn't really do any of the things he said he was going to do by draining the swamp. And in J.D. Vance, you have somebody that's problematic in many ways, not just for the foreign policy aspect, because as you correctly stated, the attempt is to get support because a lot of Americans want money to stop going to Ukraine. They want to end this war. So as an opposition to Joe Biden, Donald Trump and Vance will position themselves to say that, okay, they're going to end this. They want to be the ones to look like, okay, we're going to come in and we're going to end this war and it's going to be great for the American people. How that happens, if that happens, though, is left to be determined because, as I'm sure you know, when people are campaigning before an election and during an election, they are going to say a lot of things and promise the moon and the stars. But once they get inside, oftentimes they move towards the center. And by the center, I mean the establishment. They completely renege on their promises that they are giving. Also, the fact that Donald Trump has to contend with Congress. He can't just automatically go and end the war in Ukraine. But with JD Vance coming in and saying all these things is to distract the public from what their, I think, end goal is to move the war theater from Ukraine into not just China, but perhaps Iran. He also made some statements saying that you have to hit Iran very hard if you're going to go after Iran. So he has been seeming extremely belligerent with Iran. And this is, of course, something that a lot of the people on the right tend to have this position when it comes to Iran and China. So maybe we will see an attempt by the Trump administration, if they come in, to shift the Ukraine war, but it's not going to be in a sense of, okay, we're just going to end this war. It's going to be what can make America look good, what can make the US look strong, and how can they move it towards the other regions, which honestly I think are next.
Yeah, and I know that that's really the concerning part there is, I mean, yeah, obviously right now, Kiev is not winning the war in Ukraine, therefore the US is not winning it. And so I could kind of see that line of thinking if you come in as the next administration and you say, okay, well, we're not winning here. We're wasting all of this money. Ukrainians are dying. Let's just pull out. And then they have to move on to the next thing, as you were saying there. And it's been so interesting to see. I think Joe Biden, right? He is the main establishment creature. We know what we're getting with him. We know that he's going to support all of these wars, tensions all over the place. But when Trump really tries to present himself as anti-establishment, I think a lot of people want to believe it, right? They want to believe that, okay, he's actually going to drain the swamp this time around. Give him another 4 years, right? He's been through all of these different cases. He's been through criminal trials. He's been targeted. He's literally been targeted in an assassination attempt right now. But of course, the underlying concerns are there. And I think a lot of that surrounds who he surrounds himself with, because that's something that we've seen with Trump is he is very much impacted by the people who are around him. And we're also seeing that with someone like JD Vance, someone who once compared Trump to Hitler. So clearly, it just because he says something right now doesn't mean that he could be saying the same thing in just a few months from now. But what are your concerns when it comes to not just a possible second term for Trump, but especially when it comes to his cabinet and some of the people who are around him who may push him further towards war with China and war with Iran?
Yeah, as you mentioned, JD Vance is extremely flip-floppy. He has flip-flopped on Donald Trump, and while I believe that people change their minds as they get new information, the way he did it is extremely suspect. And when we talk about picking somebody like that, that could be a potential for, say, Trump somehow it gets removed out of office or something happens, and this guy is going to be his successor, which the New York Times, I believe, described him as such, which is very interesting. And so then you have, of course, that aspect where he is also pro-Israel. He is extremely, to the point where he went to the Wailing Wall like Trump and took his photo op there. So you have this continued sort of conflict in the Middle East with somebody like that. You also have the opportunity for somebody like Vance to flip-flop, and let's say there's more responsibilities put on him for whatever reason. That's not going to help get us out of wars. It's going to actually help us get more into them. And I think he is actually more of an establishment risk than perhaps, say, other candidates might have been, even though the candidate pool wasn't the best, at least. I don't think we have a good candidate pool pretty much anywhere at this point in the US. But the reality is he seems like a guy that could flip the switch at any moment. And if Trump continues putting in people that are unreliable, that aren't going to want to say stick to the plan and end the war in Ukraine, and are going to be even more belligerent towards Iran or towards China, then it's going to really take us down another hole that we don't want to be in. And we're already overextended with the war in Ukraine, because we're not only helping Ukraine, or not really helping Ukraine, but helping NATO and helping our own interests, right? We're also doing it with Israel. We're also supplying weapons and funding to Israel. And Israel is also failing its mission to, quote unquote, eliminate all of Hamas. And so when we look at the next administration, you're going to see fatigue from the American public on these wars. We just got out of a 20-year war in Afghanistan. And of course, it didn't take long for us to be involved in yet another conflict that's expanding and escalating. So I think that the risk is going to be perhaps having the establishment, the status quo, the whatever people call the deep state, continue to be in charge. And I think that's just the nature of our country right now. I don't see that we have a democratic country. I think we don't have a fair system where the presidents are running the country. You know, we have so much input by the intelligence apparatus, and that pretty much makes it impossible to say, well, this president's going to do this. Well, will they be allowed to do this?
Yeah, I think that is an excellent question, especially even when you do have, Trump and JD Vance saying that, oh, we're going to end at least U.S. support for the war in Ukraine. We're going to come in and tackle that. It's like, okay, that's great to campaign on that promise. But I mean, I remember Obama did it with Afghanistan. How many times did he say we're going to end the war in Afghanistan? And it's like, it's a lot easier to say it on the campaign trail versus to actually do it when they get into the Oval Office. And now you mentioned JD Vance's support for Israel. That's something I've seen a lot about all over social media. And even going back to October 7th, I mean, he blamed the Biden administration for the attacks then, claiming that they weren't doing enough for Israel. There's been a lot of concern given the fact that Trump is extremely pro-Israel, very pro-Zionism as a whole. A lot of concern that you take this pairing, you put it into the White House, and the result is that Israel not only continues on killing Palestinians, but does it at a rate that we haven't seen. And that's saying a lot given the fact that Israel has carried out a number of massacres, even just in recent days, targeting Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. So what are your concerns there, even as we do have that fatigue, I think, from the public when it comes to U.S. support for Israel and its genocidal war in Gaza? But yet, what are the concerns that it gets ramped up even more come January if Trump wins?
Yeah, right now, this is a regional war. What's happening between Israel and Palestine, or in Gaza? I wouldn't even call it a war at this point, right? I would call it a genocide. But what it came from was a regional conflict. I think what could happen is it could expand into a more global conflict, especially when you have many of the neocons that are in Congress that have been salivating to go to war with Iran, that literally want to go to war with Iran tomorrow, that are saying we need to bomb Iran. And like, they have been saying this for a long time, but has been increasing because of Iran's stance on the Israel-Palestine issue, and because Iran has been supportive of Palestine, and because of the entire resistance, including Hezbollah, including the Ansarullah, and all of these groups, they have supported the Palestinian cause. And so when we talk about anything going after Iran, or something that has been there on the forefront, we can see how this could develop into something more global, with all of these countries having a participation in this. And of course, you have to put in Russia there, because Russia is allied with Iran. They do have a relationship with Israel as well, but they have been trying to maintain a sort of neutrality in the region. And when you disrupt all of this, which is, of course, this is the Gaza situation, and what Israel's doing has disrupted everything, it can potentially get worse. And when you also have a lot of neocons who feel that China is this demon that is threatening them in some form or another. You also have the ability to go and escalate things in China. And I think that would certainly overextend us because we cannot, we don't have the military, we don't have the intelligence, we don't have the capability, the financial capability to do this all at once. And I think it could be worse than what it is now. We think it's bad now. I think it could be worse because I think the ultimate goal of these radical neocons in the State Department and in the Pentagon is to go after China. Even behind Russia, it's China because China is the biggest threat economically and politically.
Yeah, and it's always fascinating to me because I'm like, okay, what are you going to do? I mean, short of full-on nuclear war in which Russia, China, Iran all team up together and go against the US and I guess whatever is left of Europe, well, then what are you really going to do to stop China? But they don't really seem to care, right? The US doesn't get itself into conflicts around the world with some sort of an end game or some sort of a logical plan, as we've seen time and time again. Now, I did also want to ask you about another element to all of this when it comes to Trump's decision to pick J.D. Vance, because this is not just some random senator who happens to be pro-Trump. No, he's also notably bankrolled by Peter Thiel, who is a co-founder, among other things, of Palantir Technologies, which worked with Israel to provide the IDF with intelligence and surveillance services, including a form of predictive policing. And I know that that's something that many Americans are very concerned about, and rightfully so, right? We are watching right now as our government is not just supporting Israel, but also testing out new technology on the Palestinians and the Gaza Strip, kind of using them as a testing ground, as sick and horrible as that is. What are your concerns there? That it seems like really there's not a lot of talk about this, maybe more so in the mainstream right now.
Yeah, I mean, the surveillance state is going to expand. I mean, even incidents such as the apparent attempted assassination against Trump will be used to bring in more surveillance and more attacks on free speech and more concern for security. But under these security concerns, we've heard it time and time again throughout our lives. Oh, we need to protect our national security interests, our national security. Well, what that means is the expansion of the surveillance state. And Vance, as you mentioned, is fully supported by Peter Thiel, is fully supported by Elon Musk, another one that is also involved with the Department of Defense and Israeli intelligence as well. And so when you're looking at this, and you see that simultaneously they're trying to paint them as these outsider anti-establishment candidates, I smell something rotten here, because it seems to me they're trying to dismiss who these people really are, especially why would Trump bring in somebody like that? What is exactly does he have to gain in terms of the establishment type of candidate he's bringing? Because at the end of the day, no matter how you put it, this guy could flip at any moment. He has this background. He is supported by all these questionable billionaires. And that is not really anti-establishment. That is not an outsider perspective. So maybe there is some sort of deal that Trump is making to bring this guy in. Maybe there's a reason why he's doing it. At the end of the day, I don't see that as an opposition to the status quo. I see it as a sort of controlled opposition, an opposition that is going to make the public and the supporters feel like, okay, maybe we'll give this guy a shot, since Joe Biden is so bad and he can't even remember what he ate yesterday, and he can't even string coherent words together. So people are desperate, right? And so they're like, okay, well, let's try Trump out again. Let's see what happens, and let's put in this guy to like neutralize anything he might do. And I see that is what Vance's role is, because as much as I don't think Trump is fully an outsider, I do think he's a wild card. And oftentimes that's why they didn't really like him, because they feel like he says the quiet part out loud. And he has said, like, you know, we're going to take serious oil. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And so with Vance, I think it's a form of control. And I hope I'm wrong, but it does seem to me like he's going to take the more establishment route when it comes to the politics if the administration gets in.
Yeah, and I know that is a major concern. And speaking of Elon Musk and how he's tied into all of this, you've got the Wall Street Journal reporting that he's planning to give around $45 million a month to a new super political action committee backing Trump. And that's when you get the talk in there that, okay, Elon Musk was one of the driving forces behind JD Vance, getting him in there as the vice president spot. And it's so interesting to me with Elon Musk because, you know, when it comes to the new rebranded X, I mean, when it was Twitter before Musk took over, I mean, I know that we were shadow banned to high heaven, right? We were labeled as, you know, Russian state media and our tweets got no visibility. Then you have Musk come in and he talks about wanting to promote free speech. And all of a sudden those labels are gone. And I'm sitting there going, oh, my tweets are getting more traction. This is great. But as we've seen with Musk, it's not really full free speech. And he still has a lot of concerning commentary, but also a lot of ties to the US government as a whole. How do you see Elon Musk as someone who on one hand, he says things and it's like, oh, I completely agree with him. But then he turns around and he does something that reminds you, okay, he's not quite as free and open as you may want to think that he is.
Yeah, I see him as an opportunist. Like he is, I mean, I don't trust billionaires. I think at that point, you know, you've had to have done something wrong to amass the amount of money he has, which is completely unfathomable. And at the end of the day, I think he's going to do what promotes his business and money making before anything. And he's going to have to come under the control, some sort of agreements. And he has done that. I mean, yeah, like it's better we got the Russian state affiliated media thing removed, but for example, even when I'm in Russia, I still get that shadow ban. When I'm outside of Russia, though, I've noticed that ban is gone. It completely goes away. So there's still some things that he is being complacent with in terms of certain accounts getting completely kicked off of Twitter, in terms of, for example, allowing Israel to say whatever they want. But when it comes to the Palestinian activists, they have gotten their accounts taken down or censored, especially for saying something like, you know, from the river to the sea or something like that. And so you are seeing that he plays favors to only a conservative viewpoint, to the Israeli viewpoint. So is it really free speech? A lot of people, you know, have seen evidence that it really isn't. And I think he plays both sides. He plays like the guy that's going to be the good Batman type of billionaire. He's going to, you know, give you free speech. But at the end of the day, his ties are undeniable to the Israeli intelligence, to the Department of Defense. And he does play ball with them. He went as far as visiting Israel and having these conversations with these IDF soldiers and Israeli officials. So how could we trust in somebody that has ties to a government that is being funded by the U.S., to military in the U.S., that is saying that he's advocating for all these things and then putting massive amounts of money behind Donald Trump? What does that say about Trump's candidacy? Is it really an outside candidacy when you have all of this massive amount of money coming from people with questionable ties? Well, it isn't. And so any sort of idea that Trump is going to be some sort of anti-establishment hero, and I think this event obviously helped him appear as one, appear as like the guy that the intelligence is you know, targeting, or somebody is targeting. That's how it's appearing, especially to many of his supporters. Well, if you have that, then it's going to seem to me that this is the image you want to portray. But is it a real image? Is it a real anti-establishment candidate? I don't think so. I don't think we have seen an anti-establishment candidate that's genuine for a long time, because I don't think the powers that be want that to happen. I think we will continue to see candidates that on one way or another pick the red team or the blue team, and that's the only choice we get, if it even is a choice at that point, right? So
yeah, and I think that, you know, especially in a time like right now where we're looking around and going, okay, there is a void for an anti-war candidate, right? Someone who's truly anti-war all around, not just picking Russia or China or Iran as their chosen war of the moment. And yet we don't see that. We don't even see that in someone like RFK Jr., where he literally was so close to being, at least in that realm, right? He comes up, he criticizes Ukraine, he criticizes this and that when it comes to the US government. And there's a lot of people where it's like, okay, we want that person. What do you make of the fact that there is that hunger for an anti-establishment candidate, but it kind of stops short of the realization that as long as we have the establishment that we have, we're never going to have that perfect candidate. Not only exist, excel, and then make those necessary changes. It's going to take almost a dismantling of the establishment that we have in order to really get to that point.
You said it yourself. It's going to take a dismantling of the entire system, actually, of the entire system. There is no way a actual anti-war candidate can come in and win the presidency. Right now, we can't even have third-party candidates that are more anti-war, from the Libertarian candidate to the Green Party candidate to whatever party candidate exists, because they don't even get seen. They don't get any traction. The system doesn't give them a fair shot at actually winning. So as long as we have the system that acts like that, that completely excludes anybody else, that is not democratic, we're not going to get a fair shot, and we're going to be stuck with the choices that are predetermined, like a non-cognizant Joe Biden or a potential, wild card of Trump that is also backed by billionaires, and the same way that Biden is also backed by problematic people. And so how do we change that? Do we change that by continuing to vote every 4 years and continuing to say, okay, well, maybe this time, we will have a fair shot? No. And then every 4 years, I have these same conversations with people. Every single time they think, well, maybe Donald Trump will save us from this time, or maybe Joe Biden will save us from the fascist Trump, or maybe, it was a few years ago, 8 years ago, it was Bernie Sanders. And then it was also Bernie Sanders. And both times Bernie Sanders was completely kicked out of the system. And again, he also gave in and began supporting the Democrat. He was an independent. So what is left really for the American public if you have tried many times to do it the electoral way? Then there has to be another way. And I think it's going to take Americans to actually realize that. I don't think we're there yet in the US. I don't think the US is their public is aware enough or has enough awareness in terms of caring about politics. We have a lot of apathy in the US. People don't pay attention to it whatsoever. And so that is part of the problem. And there's been talk, right, about a civil war. If Donald Trump had been killed, there would have been a civil war. I don't think so. I think there would have been a lot of anger. I think there would have been maybe his supporters would have done something, right? And liberals would have justified it, saying he brought it upon himself. But for a civil war to happen, there has to also be the involvement of more people for that to happen, more and more people. But I do believe that that's what the powers that be do want. They want us at each other's throats and not to resolve the issue and point out the real problems, which is the people in power.
Yeah, certainly a lot at stake here all around. And I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to break down all of the latest. Journalist and geopolitical analyst Fiorella Isabella, thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thanks for having me.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. If you want to support my work, you can also check out my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/rachelblevins. That's where you can sign up as a monthly paid subscriber and join the community there. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.
Now, we take a look at this clip from Grimerica and their interview with Hrvoje Moric.
So far, it's paying the bills. We'll see how it goes.
Wow. Well, that's crazy. I mean, we're dealing with some censorship and shadow banning, of course, with YouTube and Twitter and Facebook right now. We're in jail. We're in jail, feeling shame from Facebook. But what happened with PayPal? What did they get you for? I mean, that's a pretty big one.
So, I mean, I pieced it together. So they're not going to tell you. But what I figured out, what actually happened. That was the week, April 2022. You guys remember Nina Yankowicz and the Disinformation Governance Board. So that was the week they rolled out the Disinformation Governance Board. And January, the 3-4 months before, I created a PayPal business account with my name, because I was going to do memberships and subscriptions. And that week it was Consortium News, Mint Press News, Caleb Maupin of RT, and myself, specifically us, we got banned from PayPal. And then I got messages from Kim Iverson and Matt Taibbi, and they both covered my deplatforming. You know, Kim Iverson's, she was on the Hill. She left right after that, but you can still see the clip where she's showing my screenshot that I gave her of geopolitics and my name and saying how we were taken off of PayPal. And then you may be familiar with Mike Benz.
Yeah.
Mike Benz.
Yeah. Recently, very, very articulate with what's going on.
Yeah. And so through his Freedom Foundation work and documents, I was able to see that CISA is like the sub-agency for DHS. So, I mean, this is the wildest thing for me. I didn't lose any money because, Mexico PayPal, the Mexican government a few years back made a new rule where by every day, every midnight, any money that any Mexican had in PayPal account had to be deposited into the bank. So that was their control system. So every day, if you're a Mexican or you have PayPal in Mexico, that money's got to go to your bank every day. You can't keep it there because they want to know. But anyways, what happened was DHS. So this is political persecution. This is why they're not going to tell you what they did, because I logged in. They sent me an email and said you're a risk. So we have this facade of democracy and freedom, right? So they can't go any further, because if they say you're a political risk, well, that's like North Korea now. We're not a democracy. So what I pieced together was in those documents, Mike Benz has CISA classifies disinformation, what we're doing, as basically me and the others are non-kinetic threats to the U.S. government, and we are attacking the cyber infrastructure of the U.S. government. And so I figured it was DHS who told PayPal to ban us. And then later, I even called up PayPal and said, "Can I close my account?" I'm like, "I can't even use it, so let me at least close my account." And they're like, "No, you can't close your account. It's going to remain in this state forever, frozen." So that's that.
Wow, that's crazy. And what were you talking about at the time? I mean, just making fun of Nina, or?
I think a lot of the hot topics they get you for on all these different platforms. I lost Patreon the year before. That's another story. I did the first interview in January of 2020 with Francis Boyle, the Bioweapons Act guy, and that interview exploded. It got deleted. The next day, my face was on the cover of InfoWars, and Alex Jones was doing a play-by-play of my interview with Boyle. And then the Associated Press in 2021 did a hit piece on Boyle, and they referenced my Geopolitics and Empire podcast. And that AP article was co-written by the Atlantic Council. So that's NATO's think tank. So, NATO, CIA, DHS, this is military, information warfare. A week later, I'm banned from Patreon. And Patreon had told me I had to delete from the entire internet. I had to delete 2 interviews, one that I did with Robin Monotti and another that I did with Dr. Mark Serkis. He's this Brazilian doctor. He's down in Brazil. He's kind of like a Dr. Mercola, very cool guy. So that was COVID stuff. So they said you have to delete it from the entire internet if you want your Patreon back. And I'm like, no, screw you guys. Because, tomorrow they could say, delete half of your podcast catalog. And so COVID, or the topics you can't question, vaccine, COVID, and I think with the DHS PayPal stuff, maybe the war, because I have guests on that question the official narrative of the Ukraine war, and so war, COVID, climate, not so much, but elections. YouTube's been keen on eliminating videos when you question the election.
Yeah, it seems like those big ones until things sort of slow down, calm down a little bit, until things start showing themselves to be, what you've been saying probably. Those are pretty hot topics. I guess, is climate change going to become that too, or is it already past that point? Because I feel like on some of these things, like even, Ukraine, well, COVID for sure, the war, what else did you have listed here? The elections, like it's already sort of coming out, right? They can't stop it. It's like, water coming through a leak in the dam. But is climate change going to be at that level too, do you think? Or is it too late for that?
I think they'll get there too. I mean, right now, I haven't seen any deplatforming for denying the weather, denying the climate. But if you read some of their white papers, you read the tea leaves, you see that's where they're going. I was reading just yesterday or the day before, I was reading a white paper. They're talking about climate change, migration. And basically, if you read between the lines in the white paper, they're talking about how the climate change is going to force people to relocate. And we know in past, when they had the UN climate meeting in Cancun, I think that was 2012 or something. I can't remember, 2016, 2012. They were talking about forced relocation. So I think, and then you've got they're calling them resilient cities, 15-minute cities, Australia, right? So this stuff is now, they've got to mainstream it, they can't hide it anymore because, if you're going into world government, you got to the mask has to come off and be like, if you're going into the concentration camp, it's kind of like, okay, guys, we weren't really going to send you on vacation or, you're going to the concentration camp. And so the Australian news the other day was saying, we're creating these resilient cities. In certain parts of Australia, we're not going to be able to insure your homes anymore. And so that's going to force people to relocate. And in this white paper, they're talking about basically, we're going to climate change migrate you into 15-minute cities. And so I think eventually they will start doing the same with the climate deniers. I mean, I'm sure you've seen over the years talk about, we should jail skeptics or fine climate skeptics.
Yeah. So did you, I wanted to continue on with that thread, but I do want to go back about what you were teaching. What were some of the topics that you were teaching before you left academia?
Yeah, so 2010, I began teaching at the Tec de Monterrey, which is like the top private school in Mexico. And, the Mexican millionaires send their kids there. Al Gore visited us on campus during the COVID online graduation. I was no longer working there, but I was told that one year Bill Gates spoke, another year Hillary Clinton spoke. And so basically I was teaching international relations, different topics, foreign policy, European politics, North American politics, terrorism. They gave me a class on 9/11. And you better believe it, I was going to teach the skeptical narrative of 9/11. And they gave me a class called Environment and International Relations. So I would teach the official narrative one session, and then the next session I would show the skeptical narrative and Skype in Lord Christopher Monckton for like 2 hours from England to talk. That's still online on my old channel called Dissident Thinker. And so basically, I would say I taught deep politics. I even Skyped in Peter Dale Scott, who's in his 90s now, and they call him the father of deep politics research. So I was basically teaching all these different subjects,
That's super.
Next is this clip from Maj Toure and his interview with Nick Irving.
We got our brother Nick Irving here. What's up, bro? How you?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How are you, man?
I'm wonderful, bro.
Oh yeah.
So just full disclosure, I'm gonna save this. I'm gonna chop it up. I think that it's in the middle of the day, but I thought it would be very important for everybody to get some of the information as quick as possible. Thank you tremendously for doing this.
All good.
Yeah, and I'll share it all over the place. I mean, I don't know how much you just heard, but obviously theories, perspective. Every anti-gunner right now is 1,000% a sniper. They know exactly what, it was all fake. We saw Amanda Seals kind of like saying, that's not how gunshots sound. So now she understands sound signature, like everything is wild. So I wanted to have you on to ask you some basic questions about this scenario and like, all that other good stuff. So first I got to ask you, for the 7 people that may not know, what qualifies you to give perspective on this?
Man, I mean, I was a U.S. Army Ranger, sniper team leader. Before that, I was a designated marksman. After I left the service, I went into private military contracting, did diplomatic security, was a sniper over there. I did diplomatic security details for Joe Biden at the time when he was vice president. And I did it for Hillary Clinton. I forget what position she was at during that time, but she came to Baghdad. We took her around, did some security for her. It was during the time she lost the BlackBerry over there.
And we got to recover that.
Yeah.
Hey, so what is everybody missing here? Everybody's focused on maybe the shooter, maybe the roof that the shooter was on. From your perspective, what is everybody missing? And like, what concerns you about where everybody's looking over here and they might want to take a minute to think about this over here?
Yeah, to be honest, man, I think the biggest takeaway from it is the gaping holes in the security detail itself. Like when you're doing private security at that level, dude, there's no way any rooftop at that distance, especially we're looking at 152 yards away. There's no way that rooftop is going to be, if not a body on it, have eyes on it at all times. Like that happens weeks, if not months prior to even going out. It's like,
is that a absolute mistake that could randomly happen?
No, man, it isn't no, it does not randomly happen. That's like it's so many catastrophic failures. It's like for all those things to happen in that security detail, to have that hole in security, like for all that to happen, it almost doesn't feel real, man. Like it feels like I'm not trying to be like a conspiracy theorist too much, but dude, it's something that does not happen ever. I've never heard of it, never seen it, nothing.
So, for the people that think 150 yards is a long distance because they don't jog, and is this within the Cape? From your perspective, let's talk about the shooter force or the counter sniper. Why would he miss that? What would be the conditions? Let's say it's all legit and everybody failed and there's no conspiracy, right?
Yeah.
What would be the conditions for that to happen, for him to not see that? We already got to the point where we don't got a body on the roof. There's no eyes on the roof. What would be the conditions for that officer to miss that person shimmying up that roof?
The odds of that happening, man, man, how hot was it that day? I mean, if there's like like on those metallic rooftops, you can see that boil effect. I'm trying to like pass it off to that, but even with that, you can see movement. Like your sights may be obstructed looking at a tin roof on a hot day, and you get that boil, the mirage effect. Like you may have that, you may have that, but dude, you shoot through that all the time. And at that distance, you're looking at movement more than anything else. You can see a person's pupil at that distance. So I just don't. Like an A-frame roof, I'm thinking because he was on the backside of that A-frame, his view was obstructed. I don't know how much higher of an elevation they had on that roof that the shooter was from. That's like the only thing I can chalk it up to. The only thing. But to get shots off on the target and hit him where he hit him, he had to have seen him like to begin with. I don't. Yeah.
Is there a possibility, between joint, local PD works with Secret Service. Okay, and this particular one is Butler, PA. It's not a big city. We're gonna make Secret Service detail mostly on the president, right? So in this scenario, is it possible that there was maybe the miscommunication between local and Secret Service? Because was the counter sniper, was he Secret Service or was he just local PD?
Yeah, I just found that out today. He was a Secret Service sniper that shot him. Wow. So I just found that out today. Earlier like a few hours ago, reading a news clip. I'm not like 100%. It was on the news. It was on a news article. I'll have to send it to you. But they said it was a Secret Service police sniper. So a sniper.
Okay, so we fast forward. We get 2 to 3 minutes. What's the protocol? We get 2 to 3 minutes. Those videos are all over the place. Regular people that can see the roof from under the roof and are pointing, saying, yo, there's a dude over here. Yo. What would be the breakdown in communication, A, to not immediately get the president off of the stage, in your perspective?
Radio communication. If you're looking at like the lower level, the Butler PD, and they're not used to something like that, I can see that maybe that guy who was going to make that phone or make that radio call, he didn't want to because it would have created an entire chain of events to have the president rushed off stage during one of his rallies. So he may have been like timid to even hop on the radio. That lapse in communication. But once the call was made, like they should be all on the same radio frequencies, radio channel. That lapse in time. The only thing I can chalk that up to, man, it's literally like the guy on the ground did not want to be that guy that listened to the crowd, made a bad judgment call, and he made the wrong call, and it destroyed the entire, rally. That's the only thing I can chalk that up to.
Is this staged? Is this, like Amanda Seal says, is this just popcorn and those aren't real shots and that's not what gunshots sound like? And I'm being a little bit facetious, but it is Amanda Seals the expert here in knowing what the sounds sound like? And what, from your perspective, is it all fake? Is Trump just jumping out there to get some more notoriety as he's the front runner?
He doesn't need any more like notoriety. He already has that. But dude, the first time I got shot at, I didn't know what was going on. I was thinking like movie, you hear the big boom, 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 but I heard crack pops, like light pops. I thought my hearing protection, my Peltors were malfunctioning. I had static in them or something like that. But after you've been shot at, what they were hearing, those little pops and cracks, was the supersonic projectile moving at supersonic speeds, cracking the sound barrier. And you can hear it over the mic, that crack. Then like a half a second later, split second later, you heard the boom of the rifle. And it gives you a good judgment of how far away he was. But yeah, what Amanda Seals was hearing, it was that pop of the bullet, that supersonic crack. You never hear the bang. If you hear the bang, you're not hit. And that bullet probably really wasn't for you if it was a real sniper, you know?
Right. The only time that I've had something similar, somebody tried to shoot me in North Philly a couple years ago. This was a handgun though.
Really?
Yeah. I came out of the crib. It was 3 a.m. and it was like they thought I was doing something that I wasn't doing because I used to do it with them. And they hid between the two. You know, Philly's like your door and then the steps in the street.
I drove through Philly, man. That's a different concrete jungle, man.
And so that's my combat, right? They were in between cars and just shooting at me. And it was just like they missed everything.
Wow.
And so but that's a little bit different. At that distance, you're dealing with different scenarios. You're different with different, like you said, speed, sound, all of these different signatures. Let's go to the shooter for a second. Okay. How the fuck was he able to shimmy a roof with a ladder? With a ladder and mosey to that situation? Is that shooter wrong to, as soon as he gets up there? Okay, he doesn't want to be the person. Now I'm low key kind of like accepting that if he's local PD, he's got to get that call. Yo, don't shoot until da 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 da.
Yeah.
But at a Secret Service level, that's the threat. He's on the roof. We get him. How was he able to do that?
Man, I've thought about that. And to be honest, it's impossible for me to like give you a legit answer. You know, there's so many, like, dude, you got to think, we're looking at the Secret Service, like the top tier who protects the president and all these guys, top tier. And a 20-year-old guy who with no training, no background, if he could pull something like that off, dude, that should raise a lot of eyebrows. I don't know how that happened. Like if I were to do something like that, that would have not even crossed my mind. You know, I'm going to get within 200 yards of this guy, shimmy up a ladder, low crawl up on not even camouflage. I think he had like a gray shirt on and cargo shorts, you know? Yeah. And I'm, dude, it's impossible for me to even like conceive or even try to put into words to make it make sense to where like, I could see how they missed this guy. I just don't see how.
Is that secret? So we go with that counter sniper and he's focused on looking at further out to distance. 150 ain't that far. I'm used to going somewhere else. Maybe he's like, well, is it possible that his position, maybe he couldn't, maybe even if he's from our vantage point, got him and it's looking like he's looking at him, but is it possible that he's looking further?
I'll give you like a secret. It's not like a secret. So Secret Service can't really shoot that far, bro. Like they can't. I'm not going to give the distance, but I've done training with them and I did some Super Bowl work with them a few years ago. They can't shoot that far. They're not like what you would think a mile long shot.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. They can't shoot that far. They're trained to shoot, I would say, within like 300. I'm not going to. Well, relatively close. The odds of him, like when we call it burning through a target, where you have your scope set to a certain zoom level. Let's say if it's 20 power, 12 power, 15 power, you could burn through an object that's closer, and I would use that to like burn through foliage or something like that. But a moving solid object like a human being, there's no way. And he had a spotter with him as well. So, and those are the primary focus points as a counter sniper. My likely or known, likely, and suspected avenues of approach are a threat. That would have been my top priority, was that rooftop at 152 yards away, that little housing complex. Everything beyond that was low terrain, low foliage. Dude would have to have a ghillie suit to even low crawl that far. Right. But to hop up on a roof, I'm looking at the rooftops. When I was sniping and doing all my sniper work, rooftops and windows were my primary.
Yeah.
The guys on the ground should have the stuff on the ground.
How's this?
Now, we take a look at this clip from Ricky Varandas and his interview with Ryan Cristian on October 7th.
Most things in history, if you watch a great old documentary called Promises and Betrayals, which is about the World War I, the fall of the Ottoman Empire, and how the French and the British were promising all these different types of people their own countries and land and all this stuff. And obviously the title of the documentary, Promises and Betrayals, can kind of, I guess I spoiler alert, they betray. And then also there's the transfer agreement, which you're aware of, which is another thing that nobody talks about, right? So there's so many layers of this. I know we're limited on time. Do you want to touch on October 7th? Just I guess your overview on, are you pretty confident in believing that they knew it was basically a September 11th type thing where they knew it was going to happen. They kind of let it happen. And for the purpose of, now looking back and reflecting on just, what happened afterwards, it seems like, well, this is their way of justifying the actions that came later.
Yeah, it's a hard thing to wrap up in a small period of time, but I think what's important to realize is that at least the evidence that has now been presented through Haaretz, through New York Times, through Egypt, through a lot of different entities. So it becomes really difficult to just go, it's all fake, which it certainly always could be. It's very clear. And again, the New York Times put this report out, I think it was November 2023 or December. It's like a while ago. Operation Jericho Wall, I think it was. The point is that they had this information all the way back then, that they knew this was going to happen at some levels. And that the one that we just got from the, I think, Con News Network kind of followed up and put another report out. Same thing. And this one had more specific details, but it was generally the same idea that, yes, they knew this was coming and they, at some levels, didn't act. Now, you could argue that they, and this is where the game is played, is or maybe just difference of opinion, that one side, some people argue that, well, they just thought it was imaginary. That was one of the quotes. They said, that's not even, there's no way they can do that. They underestimated their ability. I think that's easy to verify isn't true. The other side of it is that at some level, they ignored Egypt telling it was coming months ahead of time. They ignored, repeated countless examples of their own security people on the watchtowers telling them. And this is written by, I think, Ynet News covered this, Haaretz covered this, where they were coming out and they were coming and going, Commander, we see them. They're literally practicing at the walls. We see them doing this. We see them getting ready. We see, we see it. They're doing something. They're coming. And they said, stop. And they got so many times that they said, if you keep doing this, I forget their exact wording. They said, we're basically going to lock you up if you keep bringing this to us. That's coming from Israeli media. I don't know, that alone, how you disregard how crazy that is. Like, they're just going, shut up, or we're going to arrest you for telling us that we're going to be invaded. And no, but there's so many examples around just that concept right there about the information they saw coming. Then you can get into the day it happened. Efron Fangenson, who's a former IDF member who's been speaking about this, she's an Israeli Jew herself, said that she said, look, there are guns on, auto turrets, like AI turrets, that will react to a cockroach. And none of that was active. Right. So the day this happened, there's anywhere between, I think they say 4 to 6 hours. I don't know how you can even rationalize 1 hour, quite frankly, but this is coming from insiders. Hours of nothing. They would break through the wall and there's empty checkpoints. There's nobody there. I don't know how you explain that, right? And I guess the argument was that we moved some people over to this area for the West Bank or something because there was a problem. But again, what about the machine guns? What about the turret? What about the surveillance drones? There's so many things they have going on. It's the most surveilled place on the planet. So my point is that the information that both the reports are showing is that they did know, or at least got warned many times beforehand. I argue, might sum up my opinion on this, and there's so much more to get into about the Nova Festival, the timing, and that it was moved. And I am convinced somebody knew about this, 100%. And that's my opinion. aside from the obvious provable information we have, that I mean like the intent side of it, that this was something that somebody allowed. Now, you could debate the let it happen, made it happen dynamic, right? Whether this was driven, that's where I highlight the obvious evidence going all the way to 2020 that Hamas at some level was being funded by Israel. That doesn't mean that it's all on Israel's side. I think I was going to say it earlier, but that would be my response to something like Piers Morgan would give you, but they'll cut you off before you can get this out. That's the point. But it would be simply that, look, you can prove that Israel's funded Hamas. And I mean, like, from the origin point to where they are today, and realize that what they did, and as his statement in 2019 to his own Likud party, Netanyahu, that Haaretz covered, states unequivocally, we need to keep funding them to make sure they don't make a two-state solution. Well, that's paraphrasing. They said to keep them divided between the PLO in Fatah in West Bank and Hamas in Gaza. So you're funding them to make sure they're in power, right? Then you turn around and scream that they elected them in 2006, and that's why you have to keep them at odds. You made that happen. Now, I can't speak to whether the election was valid. I find it impossible to believe they allowed a real election. They're terrorists, but go ahead, let you vote. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me. But my point is that they're funding them. So I think there's a level of that group that is maybe this very day that is in some ways acting in the interest of Israel, maybe just in the interest of who pays them, right? That's not surprising. But from at least 2006 forward, you can clearly see the changing, the reality that, like, they changed their charter in 2017. You can see that people who were children, well before that even, going back to the Nakba before that, or even 2006 forward, grew up, wanted to do something, are angry about the fact that they're illegally occupied, and they joined Hamas, one of the largest, most strategically active groups. And so I think the demographic of it changed. The intent of the group changed. And I think that's a huge part of it. But that's not to say that I think they didn't do anything wrong. There's clear crimes they committed. They kidnapped children. These are crimes. They should be accountable for that. But the point is that no matter who you point to, I don't care how bad you think they are, on October 7th, the act of Hamas or Palestine Islamic Jihad or individual Palestinians of taking weapons and attacking military installations, or simply going through the walls that were left open for them. I'm not talking about the settlements and that after that. I'm talking about going through a checkpoint. That was a legally protected act. Let me say that again. So this is a fact that is not disputable of international law. You can dispute international law, but at the time this happened, the acknowledged international law, the Fourth Geneva Convention, states that you have the right to armed resistance or armed rebellion if you are an occupied territory. That doesn't mean because you were bombed that day. It means you can wake up and decide to attack the occupier, and that is a legally protected act. Everything else that might happen around that that's a crime, those are crimes. But what I always say is that you don't, if you're going to apply the logic that because somebody kidnapped a child, or let's just even say you think they raped, pillaged, and murdered, despite the fact that most of that is denied by Hannibal Directive or the lies around whatever happened there, you can clearly then invalidate every war that's ever happened. You know how much rape and pillaging and murder took place in Iraq? And I would argue they are all illegal wars, but the point would be that that's only applied to this one angle. So you can't disregard all of that. So the point being that I think it's a legally protected act, and that changes the whole dynamic of October 7th. And I think that possibly, back to your point, is that some faction of this government drove this to, or wanted this to happen. And I think it's the Zionist side of this that uses this kind of act to justify its existence, to rile up a whole bunch of hate for Arabs, Muslims, or anybody in the Middle East under the idea that they all hate Jewish people, even though that's not even what happened. There were more people that were killed that day that weren't Jews, but nobody talks about that, right? Like, there's all these different levels of this, the Bedouin areas and so on. The point is that it's about creating the dynamic that's useful for Zionism in particular. And I think that you can show that some people in the government may not have wanted or may not believe in, like, the prophetic side of this. That's a whole other topic to get into. But I think that, I guess, to sum up the point is that I think some level of them wanted this to happen, allowed this to happen, even drove it to happen. And I just don't think that they expected either the response that did happen, right? Like the people that did rush in, civilians, the other actions that may have happened, or that was the plan, which is pretty messed up. Because we can prove that, I mean, at least half of the people that were killed there were killed by the IDF. This is not my opinion. This is coming from people on the ground, from Haaretz, from Israeli articles, from tank drivers, helicopter pilots, the security head at the kibbutz Be'eri himself, or Yasmin Porat, who still testifies to this day that she watched them explode a house full of civilians. You know, they did that under the Hannibal Directive, according to a colonel who called it a mass Hannibal in the Israeli military. You know, anyway, all these points are important, but most people just don't get all this stuff, you know?
Yeah, and it's not hard to believe that this is going on because, I mean, look at the weapons we're giving to the moderate rebels in Syria, right? Like,
right,
these people,
Azov movement.
Yeah, exactly. Bin Laden got, our help when they're
Saddam. Every one of them.
everybody, every bad person. I mean, the School of Americas, remember that?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's still around. I think it was in Georgia or wherever it was. But they were basically, training people who are gonna eventually kill other people, innocent people. So it's like it's insane. This stuff happens all the time. It's not hard to believe that it's still happening and happening there. And two things can't be true at once. I mean, health.
Exactly.
That documentary, and I believe it was a book too, about the Soviets raping and killing innocent German people during World War II, and all these villager, farms and villages that were raped and just horrible things were happening to them, and it was justified because Nazi Germany was the evil, the evil bad guys, the evil empire. We got to do what we got to do to stop them, which obviously was true. Like we had to put a stop to that, but it also was true that a lot of horrific things happened to German people who didn't have the same ideologies or weren't politically motivated to some extent. So it's it's fascinating. People are, I think in most cases too tribalistic and really struggle to see things that will push back against our worldview. I mean, that documentary Hellstorm got a lot of shit because it's like, what are you doing painting, Nazi Germans as or Nazi Germany during World War II as victims? How dare you do that? It's like, well, there was victims.
Now, let's take a look at some highlights from AM Wake Up from this week. Make sure to support and share their show to keep this great channel going. Share the show.
Share the fucking show. Share the fucking show. Share the fucking show. Share the fucking show.
Share the show. Share the show.
Share the fucking show.
King, and I ain't been crammed. When I'm round, something special happen every time. I'm the greatest. Something like Ali in his prime. I walk the block with the bundles. I've been not gonna humble. Swing the ox when I rumble. Show your ass from a gun. Gotta tip a nigga, go ahead. Lose your head. Turn your back on me, get clapped and lose your legs. I walk around, gun on my waist. Chip on my shoulder, try a bunch of clip in your face. Close to this beef, ain't no many men. Many men wish death upon me, Lord. I don't cry no more. Don't look to the sky no more. Have mercy on me, have mercy on my soul.
That's right.
Good Lord.
Many men have tried to kill me and Trump over the weekend.
Well, what you calling
it wasn't really
surgeon and
a man tried to kill
assassin?
me. It was
Wow.
Something tried to kill me with my appendix. I don't know that my surgeon did have a nose ring, so it gave me gangrene.
You don't look like you have gangrene.
Not yet. I tell you, this fucking hole on my left side fucking hurts. It hurts to cough. It hurts to laugh.
Yeah.
Very painful.
I don't know how long I can deal with extreme close up, Chris.
This is my new thing, extreme close up. I'm not even extreme close up yet. Wait till I get to the extreme close up. That's the extreme. Yeah. I had surgery. It hurt. I didn't die. So
net positive. Net
Yeah,
positive.
Yeah. Besides the old appendix betraying me.
I didn't even get all of my lights turned on.
Oh yeah, you're missing lights.
I was asleep 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, I wish I was asleep 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, no, I was asleep. Eyeballs popped open. I looked at the clock. I was like, that's not right. I don't have 5 minutes to set up everything and hit play and get the show out on time. And my phone was like, yeah, you do, sucker. So I scrambled on that, but that's all. So yeah, dude, no coffee, no water, no lights.
Well, I'm gonna try to hang for 3 hours. We'll see. I did like an hour last night, but as long as I don't laugh or chuckle or cough.
It's a good thing you co-host a comedy show then.
Yeah, it turns out the laughing really fucking hurts right now. Little chuckles.
Well, let's get into the big thing first, then, which will hopefully lead to a series of 3 or 4 minute clips so I can turn on my lights and make a cup of coffee.
Yeah, there's some clips.
Donald Trump is apparently the Antichrist.
Yeah.
Is that how we want to open?
I guess I mean, everybody was talking about this wound to the head.
Healed from a head wound after receiving the silver crown from the rabbis.
Yes. Trying to find I have a video that I found this morning that shows like all the angles. Here it is right here. It's got all the angles and it's in real time. So it'll give you time to turn lights on.
Yay.
You're going to see all the different angles. I also, people keep asking like how the fuck this dude got on a roof with the gun and nobody's seen the gun until he was on the roof. I kind of showed how that works. The cops will probably kick in my door soon.
Right.
But yeah, there's this. This is showing the different angles of what happened with this shooter because, dude, that shooter could barely get up the fucking roof because it was a metal roof. You don't even get the dust on your feet on a metal roof. They don't work too well.
Turns into an ice skating rink.
Yeah, you fucking have a lot of, and that wasn't even it was like a 4 on that pitch. Like it wasn't even nothing. You could barely climb up the fucking thing.
Yeah.
So we'll play this.
Doing this job, I wouldn't even be doing this. I'd be at some beautiful place with a gorgeous ocean.
Look, they're all pointing.
The Atlantic, maybe the Pacific.
Yeah, someone's on top of the roof. Look. There he is right there. Right there, see him? He's laying down. See him?
Yeah, he's laying down.
And still I'm here with you fighting like hell to get a senator.
What's happening?
And to make sure we take back the White House, because if we do, we're going to make America better than ever before. We're going to make it.
Yeah, look. There he is.
Easy, because we have millions and millions of people in our country that shouldn't be here. Dangerous people. Criminals. We have criminals. We have drug dealers. We have people that should not be here.
Right on the roof.
It's much tougher than if it happened.
You went right on the roof, big guy.
In recorded history, we're the best border. In fact, if they could ever put up a chart, I don't know if they can do it. Do you guys have access to that chart that I love so much? You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring. I try and explain that. Oh, there's it. Wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit.
God damn it.
If you want to see something.
My bad, I bumped that. What I wanted to show here, when stopping on this left-hand screen here, these guys are like getting in position. I believe they're photographers. Watch.
Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that says, typically what happens.
I hope he's turning this way. Be careful, guys.
We got breaking news. We got breaking news coming in. Shots fired. Seems to be shots fired.
This is what they call chaos.
If you're pointing at your head, buddy, he's not getting up.
We are live right now at the Trump rally. We don't know if President Trump has been shot. We know he hit the ground. We do not know if President Trump has been shot. He's up. He's up.
Okay, pause it. I didn't notice this until I was on yesterday with Wheezy, but Trump is going straight for that podium. He's like trying to push he wants on that mic so bad. And the Secret Service literally steps between the podium and Trump and like checks the podium out of the way so that he can't get to it.
Yeah, I mean, it's fucking. This is one of the most surreal things I guess I've seen. And besides the fucking towers falling, this weird insanity that boom, and then just everything that happened after, like the fist pumping, and it's like one of the most surreal things. I mean, a long time.
You can go ahead and put. You can go ahead and push play again, but he's scrambling for the podium. They're like, no, dude. And it's that stops him.
That proves that he tried to fight the Secret Service to go back to J6. I mean, this motherfucker was shot with what people say a ketchup packet.
I don't know about that, but I got some theories.
I don't know about that shit, but that's what a lot of people want to say is he caught a ketchup packet to the fucking ear.
Shots are still continuing to be fired. He's giving a thumbs up, everybody. He's giving a thumbs up.
See, and this watch the very second. If you look at the middle,
To be fired.
Switch here to this here, the middle, or this view here. So odd because it's a point of view of a point of view. So they had a camera on their head plus taking photos. It was just a very weird.
Thumbs up, everybody! He's giving a thumbs up.
Now here's the thing: is there's a dude dead behind him, over his right shoulder, which people were trying to get to, and then he raises his fist. I think they forgot about that guy for a second. They thought, "Holy shit, Jesus is risen. Maybe this guy will rise too if we all pump our fists in the air." Now
okay,
this
one more photo op.
Right now, this has been
this Secret Service lady here.
Yeah, Melissa McCarthy.
I have a clip of her. She was Obama, Biden, and Cheney's homie.
So Bruce Hart, according to you live from Butler, Pennsylvania.
I mean, what do you do when Damar Hamlin had a heart attack? Did he raise his fist? Oh, he was dead. I don't think he raised his fist. But when you get fucked up, on the racetrack and in those things, let people know you're okay. That's what happens, you know.
Yeah. 3 times though. 3
Hey,
times.
it was a long
on
walk.
The same, on the same stage that you just got.
No laughing.
You're almost your head taken off on.
Yep.
On almost. Okay.
He doesn't have his shoes on. We'll get to that.
Hear shots fired at the rally not 10 to 15 minutes after President Trump arrived. He hit the ground. Unheard of yet if he has been hit by gunfire. Secret Service quickly erupted.
We can see the guy
You
there.
can see the snipers on the building behind the. Might be a little.
I think they hit him because the guy he looks dead.
Yeah, so that was quite chaotic. Yes, fist bumps all around. Fist pumps. I thought he said fuck you at first, but he was saying fight.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who was going to get fought. No laughing, because that fucking hurts.
Well, obviously, you know, he was throwing up the Black Power fist as a signal that he was going to keep these streets held down, regardless whether or not he got the ops out here rolling up on him. I saw a comic on Instagram, and I think somebody put the reel in the Telegram.
No.
But yeah, I saw a comic on Instagram, and I think somebody put the reel in the AM Wake Up Telegram where he's like,
was it the Cam Patterson?
I think so, yeah. Where he's like, fuck it, I'm voting for Trump now. That dude's got real ops. Joe Biden's biggest ops is the stairs.
The nigga that's running. Trump. He got shot, dog. They shot him. This nigga done been shot. Stayed on with the jail. He done scammed people. Is this nigga my uncle? Who the fuck? Who the hell? He's black. He's officially black now, bro. That's beautiful. They shot him. He was like, yeah, I'm having a fight. He was fine. He was doing like this and walked out with an American flag on him. Like this. He put one of these, like, I'm a real nigga. Fuck, nigga, I'm out of here. That's hard, bro. I wasn't even finna vote. I'm voting now, dog. He got it. He won. I wasn't even finna vote. I had no skin in the game. I like, that nigga got shot. He won. Fuck the bullshit. He had real ops, nigga. What the fuck? Joe Biden's biggest op is the stairs. That's it. He had real ops. Somebody really tried to listen. That's how you know he a real nigga, bro. Joe Biden has been trying to kill himself his whole presidency. So nobody had to kill this nigga. Nobody had to try to kill it. Trump been just ready to go his whole time. And like, we got to fucking off his ass. And missed. And just skipped his ear and missed. That's crazy, bro. Hey, Mexican nigga, you fuck with Trump? Yeah? Hell yeah, that was good. Huh? You say amen? He not God, nigga. What the fuck? That was crazy.
Cam, that's probably one of Cam's best bits right now.
Right?
He's from Kill Tony. He's a regular. Here is the Secret Service short lady who doesn't know how to, I think she actually pulled her holster out of her. She couldn't holster the gun. The gun was already in the holster because she yanked it out.
She would know. The 28-year veteran was on the team that evacuated Vice President Dick Cheney on 9/11, and she served on then Vice President Biden's protective detail. He named her director in mid-2022. Amid a swirl of controversy over the agency deleting nearly all of its text messages from January 6th. The agency says that was due to a data migration.
System migrations happen, but I think for a lot of Americans, it just doesn't pass the smell test, given the timing and the volume of messages deleted.
Well, it's unfortunate that that would be the assumption that people would make. Our integrity is everything, and there was nothing nefarious attached to that.
Their integrity has...
Interesting. Okay, you know the Hunter Biden case? They had a ex-Secret Service whose spouse was still Secret Service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I wonder who that was. You know,
Huh.
you can't get the records for that or whatever.
Right.
But women in Secret Service, especially that woman, fucking suck. Yeah, it looked like she had her holster on her gun still. That's why she couldn't holster. She did get it in. She did get it in. Oh, thank God.
They both the female Secret Service agents there. They both got that jacket tug, serious face thing down. How long do you think they practiced the jacket tug in the mirror?
She can't get it in there.
Yeah. Watch her now, though. Watch her now. It's secure.
Well, when you wear a suit,
Hold
you
up.
jacket tug.
It's so clean. It is.
Look at that. 3 women. When do you see that? 3 women shorter than the dude by like a foot.
In this, Chris, the age of progress and diversity and equity and inclusion.
It's like, what the fuck, dude? Yeah, there was multiple, predictions of this happen. Apparently, this guy 3 months ago predicted Trump being shot in the ear. I don't know if I've watched this whole clip. So
throughout America, all throughout, and I saw Trump rising up, and then I saw an attempt on his life. This bullet flew by his ear, and it came so close to his head that it busted his eardrum. And I saw he fell to his knees during this time frame, and he started worshiping the Lord. He got radically born again during this time frame. I'm talking. People say he's saved now, but he becomes really on fire for Jesus, for what I saw coming. And then I saw people interceding when I saw him winning the presidency through great. The Lord showed me it would go clear into the summer. Great persecution would come on him through the judges and through the law and all these people trying to sue him and all this stuff. But there would be a stop to it, and there things would start to break free come toward the fall. And then I saw him winning the election through the Patriots coming out and voting. And
you could do without the music. That's funny. You got Alex Jones down there. Something's blocking the thing. I could only see the A, and I glanced up. It's like, what the fuck is was joining us for some commentary from the beach? Like, holy shit.
This was
you do one carnival, boom, Alex Jones is showing up.
This was right. This was immediately after the shooting, before the InfoWars live emergency Trump got shot cast, which I'm sure they were able to fundraise significantly for Alex off of.
Listen to me very carefully. I have told you for months on air, they're going to try to kill Trump. And when they try to kill Trump, they're going to go after everybody else that is his top supporters. And they also will try to kill Biden and blame it on a Trump supporter. That's coming next. Make no mistake, the same deep state that's behind Biden, that's trying to make him step down, was behind this today. They're now reporting it was an Antifa shooter who's now been killed. How convenient is that the supposed shooter has been killed? Ladies and gentlemen, our republic is in maximum danger right now. I'm about to go live at Infowars.com/show, banned out video, and right here on X. There has been an attempted assassination. The real president of the United States has been shot, and by God's good graces has survived. The bullet only grazed him over the ear and the side of his head. But ladies and gentlemen, the deep state is desperate. They are in trouble. They're going to try to expand wars. They can do power outages. They can do cyber attacks. We're in such a dangerous position. And I've noticed with all the viral videos out there, it's like, oh, he took a bullet for America. He's going to get reelected now. Ladies and gentlemen, the deep state did this. Make no mistake. And that lets you know they're going for broke. Do you fucking understand what I'm telling you? Take this deadly serious, just like war with Russia. They are going to try to kill Trump again. Now that they didn't kill him once, they are completely desperate. And I'm going to tell you again, Biden won't step down. The deep state will probably kill him or try to kill him in the next few days and blame it on a Trump supporter. And we may see massive terror attacks in America that are blamed on Trump supporters. They've been pre-programming it. They've been preparing. I've been telling you, imminent assassination attempt on Trump every damn day, because that's what a dying, corrupt establishment.
His mama seen it. Did I just freeze the whole internet? I feel like I froze the internet.
That's me. That's that I've got bars of death like crazy right now. It already kicked me out of StreamYard once this morning.
Yeah, because I would say
stopped
like
sharing and still have bars of death.
If an MK boy was if this is real, yeah, we're in some warm water, like, so to speak. These guys right here, like, these guys need to be testifying like ASAP. Like, what
100%.
the fuck is going on? Because these are local police contracted by the Secret Service. We're in Pennsylvania, right? I don't know if you know about Pennsylvania, but
yeah. So hang on, because we on Saturday Night Anarchy, remember Truth Bearer Chris that came out to the carnival, had a specialized military background, about your height classes.
Yeah.
He was on
from
Saturday
down
Night Anarchy, the land down under, but it was actually Florida, not Australia.
Yes.
Yeah. And he was telling
Great
us
guy.
that fantastic guy, and very insightful and very helpful Saturday night, where he was talking about how, because the Secret Service itself is relatively small and it doesn't have a ton of just agents on staff that it can throw for every event involving every president candidate,
Something like 3,200.
So because of that, when they do these events, almost all of the additional security is contracted out to state police, to sheriff's departments, their SRT or ERT units, and some military as well, especially if you're anywhere near like a military base or whatever. And plainclothes cops and all that shit. So none of them are Secret Service. So this guy is, I would assume, the Pennsylvania State Police sniper guy. Yeah.
Now I'm assuming they give them the patches, Secret Service, because it usually says Police Secret Service. There is a clear picture. I don't have it. I believe it does have the Secret Service patch, but this is a local police officer.
Yeah.
This is a Pennsylvania State Trooper, PD, SWAT. And it's just interesting because one of the candidates, his stomping grounds, he was a professor at the, Penn State, right? So it's just that type of stuff's interesting. Just 3 weeks ago, you had these guys calling for SEAL Team 6 to be used to take out Trump, right? You had people saying to eliminate Trump, to put him in the bullseye, like, dude, the montages of of killing Trump and like eliminating Trump whatever fucking way possible is like, wow, man, it's so wild. And they're trying to frame this kid as Republican. He was a registered Republican, and when I read, he have donated heavily to progressive PACs, so like it's anyways. I'm going to show another video where you hear a woman in the crowd screaming the kid's name. So there's a possibility they went together.
Sure that's not a woman in the crowd screaming because they blew her husband's head off 6 inches away from her?
She is. This is an angle right by the building. That building, when they're looking up and they're closer to him on that building, and they're yelling that there's a shooter up there. It's not from behind the crowd. I also have. I don't know if you've seen the shoe clip. So, anyways, these guys need to be investigated 100% because they are watching this motherfucker on that roof. Now, I don't know the exact angle if he was slightly behind that pitch, but it's like a 4-pitch, dude. It's not flat, but it's not a wall, so to speak.
No,
every
it's a very
movement,
walkable angle.
It is, but you get the right dust on the shoes, it does become difficult to fucking even walk a slight angle like that because the roof is the same pitch right here that kid was on trying to climb up, and he's having trouble getting up it because he's sliding. So they're watching him for sure. Now the thing is with this, with them watching him, he is outside of the security zone. Okay. When he's on his belly, this is why these guys have to testify, because when he was on his belly, could you see he had a gun? Is it being hesitant because you don't know? But then again, there's people down on the ground saying, "Motherfucker's got a gun."
Yeah, you're not in constant radio communication with everybody else. Hey,
the chatter had been going nuts, going fucking crazy. Because my initial thought was they had seen this guy up there. They're watching. He's outside of the ring, right? So it could be some dumb fucking kid trying to get a vantage point or something, right? And if you fucking clap him
with a sniper rifle in camo,
was he in camo?
Yeah, he had
Looked
camo
like he was
pants
like
on.
white
Camo pants.
Yeah, but I'm just saying I didn't know. I hadn't seen the pictures on top yet. My thought was they were watching him. They didn't want to fucking clap him and find out he was like some fucking kid up there being a retard, just trying to get a better vantage point or something. And then it would run, AR-15s, Trump's fucking team is killing people, blah, blah, blah. And then it turns into a whole nother thing. But then you find out they were watching him for fucking 4 minutes.
That's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Yeah. So, and there was no stand down order,
that the roof where the shooter was located was a well-known, high-priority vulnerability. It was identified just the day before during a security walkthrough. We've also just learned that there were 2 counter-sniper teams on site and that the counter-sniper did not need approval to shoot. One source telling NBC News that prior protocols were not followed.
Yeah, and then there was this guy who it's interesting because he's wearing the
very frightened
visor wig thing.
Yeah.
Inside the event, but you were just outside. Tell us what you saw. And
So we had a party here all day. You can see behind
He's
us,
probably bald.
the Brinkles Farming
That's a
Greenhouse
wig.
here. We had a party. And we all decided, hey, when we hear Trump up there, we're going to walk up through the field, stand by the trees up there under the shade, and watch and listen to the rally, right? We couldn't see him, but we could hear him. So we walked up, and probably 5 to 7 minutes of Trump speaking. I'm estimating here. I have no idea, but we noticed the guy crawling, bear crawling up the roof of the building beside us, 50 feet away from us. So we're standing there, and, we're pointing at the guy crawling up the roof.
And he had a gun, right?
He had a rifle. We could clearly see him with a rifle. Absolutely. We're pointing at him. The police are down there running around on the ground. We're like, hey, man, there's a guy on the roof with a rifle. And the police were like, huh, what? Like they didn't know what was going on. We're like, hey, right here on the roof. We can see him from.
My thing with this was like, did he walk across the fucking field with the rifle together? is my thing. When he got up on the roof, did he put it? Because that's the thing with the AR-15s. It's 2 pins. Click, lower, upper comes apart. You can carry it, throw it in a backpack. It's literally click, click, charge it, and it's ready to go. So, because people are like, how did he get to the roof with the gun? And it's like, he probably had that gun apart when he walked across the field and then puts that thing together, because it only takes a couple seconds.
Right here, we see him. He's crawling. And next thing you know, I'm thinking to myself, why is Trump still speaking? Why have they not pulled him up the stage? I'm standing there pointing at him for 2 or 3 minutes. Secret Service is looking at us from the top of the barn. I'm pointing at that roof, just standing there like this. And next thing you know, 5 shots ring out.
So you're certain that the shots came from that guy on the roof?
100%. 100%.
And he was up there for a couple of minutes.
He was up there.
You saw him up there for a couple of minutes.
Absolutely. At least 3 to 4 minutes.
And you were telling the police and the Secret Service?
We were telling the police. We were pointing at him for the Secret Service, who were looking at us from the top of the barn. They were looking at us the whole time when we were standing by that tree.
Cameraman just trying like hell to fucking signal to that dude to keep his beer down out of the shot. His beer with the Donald Trump wanted koozie. I don't know if you noticed that or not. I also love how his visor has Trump 2020 with the 20 marked out and a 20 and a 4 drawn on it with a Sharpie.
Guy.
He's a bro. That's how you can tell he's totally not an agent and totally not a fucking plant.
So this dude, this angle here, I seen this on Sam Tripoli's.
What, were the agents moving people out of the way and shit?
Yeah. Look at them, here they come.
And that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that's sad, take a look at what happened.
Wait, was that Nick Fuentes in the blue? He likes to wear a blue hoodie in the summer. Was that what happened? They see Nick was sitting back there. There's a lot of anomalies, but yeah, with them coming over, moving these guys.
Take a look at what happened.
That stuff, a lot of anomaly type shit like this, which it's chaos. It is controlled because of the majority you see are the TV angles, right? So you got to go to like Facebook, TikTok, because there'll be these, a lot of these people are boomers, so they really only know how to use like Facebook, So you go in and you'll find that's where you found all the Miami alien fucking videos was on Facebook. I haven't been over there to look for videos for this, but yeah, and then the immediate like derangement of people who were upset that
well, before you get to that, because I do want to see those videos. Well, I've got
I got Van Morris. I got
no. I mean, do whatever. Load whatever. I haven't seen any of them, but I want to make a point before we do that, and that's what we've been shown where that shed was, right? Where kid climbed up and took those shots was almost straight on from Trump.
Yep, 400
where he got
10 yards
shot, and where his head was. In order for that to happen, the bullet would have had to have come from the direction of where they blew Buddy's head off in the stands. Couldn't have come from straight on.
Well,
he got clipped.
He was still on the other side of that roof, right? He was not. Because I guess that's the front of the building, right? This right here. So this is, I don't think it's directly facing Trump, but it's at an angle.
Okay, if it's at an angle, it's at an angle of under 5 degrees, is what I'm saying. Almost straight shot, not to where it would hit his ear and go across his face coming from that direction. especially when you
on Trump.
Especially when you factor in the picture where they show the bullet in the direction the bullet's flying, which I don't know how none of these bullets hit anybody else in the stands. I don't know how there wasn't a single person standing behind Trump that managed to avoid getting shot.
I got clips of multiple people hit
from behind. There's
like 4 people. One's dead.
Okay, because I've only heard reports of the one dude that Secret Service blew their head off.
No, I got the firefighter that was killed. And now Destiny is, laughing that this firefighter was dead because he was at a Trump rally. He deserved it.
Yeah.
Destiny's a fucking... Ugh.
Well,
but yeah,
I mean, that dude's a meme in and of himself.
Yeah. I think I had found a total of 3 people being bloodied and carried out. Like, here's one witness on.
That's exactly where I heard him come from.
What did you see, sir?
I heard the shots. I thought it was firecrackers to begin with. Somebody over there was screaming, he's been shot, he's been shot. So I made my way over. I said, I'm an emergency department physician. Let me help you. The guy had spun around and was jammed between the benches. He had a headshot here. There's lots of blood, and he had brain matter there. And so I got him. There's a helicopter coming in to get him. So I got people there really helpful. I got
Was
him
there only
up
one
on a
person
bench.
shot that you saw?
Then I did CPR, did chest compressions as well as I breathed for him.
One person.
I was the only one that did it.
We need to evacuate everybody.
Here is, I believe.
That's exactly where I heard him come from.
What did you see, sir?
What the hell was that? This is that guy. This was a firefighter. I think he was 51. That was taken. That was hit and killed. And then here's the clip of, I believe this McCook trying to climb up the roof. I mean, they're looking right at him, dude. Like, you can't, like, everybody. Okay, this is when he's dead.
I think they
Trying to find where he climbed up this roof, because the way he's sliding up the roof, it was a pain in the ass for him to get up there. It seemed like.
And then we have reports of the cop who climbed up that building and then saw a dude and then climbed back down.
That's another thing of when you're watching. Is it this one right here that has a better, more clear look at the? No, it's not. I'm trying to find the one that's more clear. But when they're up there, you watch them looking through that scope, and like he seems to get right up on that scope. You see how he's up on that scope? He's got him sighted in.
Yeah.
But then he lifts up,
and
then he goes down. And I don't know, maybe that's when that cop popped up, because the shooter supposedly rolled, pointed the gun at that cop. The cop dropped off the fucking ladder. And I would assume he come right back around. But dude, they say in school he got kicked out of his rifle club because he fucking sucks. And I feel like when you watch this, that both these guys, I feel like they shot at the same time. And that fucking kid caught one and just squeezed until he couldn't squeeze no more.
That shot's a couple of months old, and if you want to really see something that's said, take a look at what happened.
Looks up.
And that's a little bit.
It's just scenarios in my head. Did it happen like that? I don't know. Where the fuck were the drones?
Right? That's a fantastic question. Where were the fucking drones? This is weird. This little mashup popped up yesterday, and like, God love the fucking internet editors, but just look.
The rest of Task Force 141 brought in the ACS, Alan. 2 men took down an entire base. I ask much more from you now. Yesterday you were a soldier on the front lines, but today today. Front lines are history. Uniforms are relics. The war rages everywhere, and there will be casualties. This man, Makarov, is fighting his own war, and he has no rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at torture, human trafficking, or genocide. He's not loyal to a flag or a country or any set of ideals. He trades blood for money. He's your new best friend. It will cost you a piece of yourself. It will cost nothing compared to everything you'll save.
I'm confused on that because that dude isn't the shooter, right?
Right? That's what. Okay, so there've been 3 different identifications on the shooter so far.
So far, yep. One, the latest is a black rock star. Which
Well, that's
now
that same dude, I think, that they just showed.
It's not, because that guy that they just showed is still alive. The BlackRock guy, BlackRock has taken down that commercial titled Shooter, which I believe I have. Where is it at? Have you seen this commercial? That has. Oh, someone said that the fucking blood on this dude's shirt looks fake, and I just had blood all over me, you know, from the whole
Screaming, he's been shot. He's been shot.
you know, surgery. When you're sweating and stuff, it'll lighten up for sure.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I had blood all over my fucking gown and shit. What was I looking for again? I got drugs on me, you know, from the doctor. So I might forget some things.
I got something here.
Oh, here's
quick.
this one that's very interesting. Old JFK Jr. in disguise.
Okay,
Made a comeback.
The JFK
And it's
Jr.
very,
and
very
there was
odd.
also a woman in the babushka character from the JFK assassination in the background there. And then there's a woman in a black hat that I have a clip of that I'm going to pull up after this.
Very, very interesting because of this guy's non-movements and gestures.
My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the government services, comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people. And you know, that's a little bit old, that chart. That chart's a couple of months old. And if you want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Look at him.
Yeah, the angle is all wrong from where they said the shooter was. And I'm pretty sure Ryan Cristian said the same thing last night.
We should pull up. God, it's gonna fuck my computer up. Pull up Google Earth. Pull up that area. You know, because there's pictures and stuff, but with Google Earth, we can move around and really see.
No, watch this shit, dude. Watch. Watch. She sits down. Yep. Watch this.
If you want to
puts the sign up.
Something that said, take a look at what happened.
Shots fall off.
She's completely normal. And then watch.
And then she's got her.
What the fuck? What the fuck? People are freaking out.
And she's filming.
And she's just.
I understand this, but also we live in a TikTok trend, desensitized, like fucked up world.
Now,
dude.
while that's true, it's not usually true for 52-year-old housewives.
It's not, but some of these CIA bitches. Now, yeah, I mean, what was she doing? Let's get her fucking footage. There's a lot of footage that needs to be gotten. There's the footage up. It's just like,
I was saying that to D
This
last
crazy
night, man, dude.
psyop, you know, and like
after January 6th, like all of the footage started pouring out, and it took a while before you were getting like, you know, Ford Fisher, bless him, released his entire fucking all of his memory sticks onto the internet like immediately. He's like, here's everything I shot. Look, let me know what you see.
yeah, I don't think it's gonna let me play my Twitter stuff, but who is it, like CP3 meme or something? You know, he's been on Rogan and shit, makes these memes. He released all this footage. Now, the amazing thing, let me see if I can find this guy, because the amazing thing about this is he has the fucking like most perfect fucking angle to really see. Here it is right here. Let's see if it'll play. I'm sure it'll fucking buffer and be a bitch.
Well, if you want to, I mean,
it's
it's playing all right on this end. If you want to just link it, I'll play it.
Let me get to this real quick, because I'm not gonna play the whole video. I just want to get to right before the shit goes down, because he has like the best. Yeah, it's gonna fuck me. Let me send it over to you. It's around like the 650 mark or something.
Okay.
And it's gonna go to like the 6 minute mark. Did I copy that? On the 6 minute mark on it, because you want to see something pops up on the screen and lets you know why the camera cut. Because it's like, you've got to be shitting me, dude. You have the best.
All right. Well, come on. Share that tab. Full screen. Where did you want?
Look how close he is to the front
Our
here.
country, we're going to take it back. Our country's been so loved so much. You don't mind if I go off teleprompter, do you? Because these teleprompters are so damn boring. I try and explain them. Oh, it is. Wow. You guys are doing it. They're getting better with time. My guys, take a look at that chart. Take a look at the arrow on the bottom. See the big red arrow, right? So that's when I left office. That was the lowest point, and that comes right from the
Look at this angle.
government services. Comes right out of Border Patrol. Take a look at that. So that arrow is the lowest amount of illegal immigration ever in recorded history into our country. And then the worst president in the history of our country took over. And look what happened to our country. Probably 20 million people.
Oh. Whoops. I stopped recording here. I did not want to block view of others behind me. In 7 to 8 seconds, he gets shot in the ear. This motherfucker had the absolute perfect angle in a frame rate that I believe would have definitely caught the bullet in the air. It would have caught fragments. It would have shown that possibly he did slice that ear, and it took a second for that blood to come to the surface. You know, that's why he didn't have blood on his hand right away. But conveniently, the fucking thing. Now he's at a completely different position. If that ain't C3P psyop. Because this guy's been re-truthed by Trump on Truth and stuff. You know, his memes and his videos have been used. And dude, you had the shot
of the
and you
century.
didn't want to block. You didn't want to block a couple people behind you. See, and at that point, over Trump's
you were perfectly
right
happy with blocking the people behind you for the first 3 minutes of that video, 6 minutes of that video.
Another interesting thing, see this Skytrack?
Yeah.
The Skytrack here is holding massive speakers. Yeah, those things right there. And we watched the shooting. It was sporadic shooting because they hit the lines on this. Because you watch that fucking thing go and fly and rapidly drop to the ground. So something hit one of the lines on this to blow the line out and drop that motherfucker. I just, for some reason, that was interesting. That means, I mean, there was bullets flying, man. People got shot. They tried to say Trump, the teleprompter, that it was glass in his face.
I remember that was reported initially, hit the teleprompter and shrapnel.
That it was glass, but you can see the teleprompter here. You can see the teleprompter here. You can see that when right at this point, that teleprompter doesn't break. Neither teleprompter breaks.
Right.
Now, here's the video of the lady screaming at the dude on the roof. Did she say Ross or Brooks?
No, she's saying Ross, get over here.
Trump is turning this way. Be careful, guys.
That is.
Oh.
Seems like on that guy dropped him. So maybe, they let him fucking fire every shot. It's tough to tell when those shots went off because we have 5K video, which, C3P meme, if Trump's head would have JFK'd, his 7 seconds wouldn't have been missing. So here's the talk of the Secret Service and the lack thereof.
Of Slippery Rock. Talk about the other Butler rally that he had been to. You were talking to me about that rally as well. Tell me the message you wanted me to understand, because there was something different about that rally versus this rally that you noticed.
Yeah, my daughter and I went, I guess it was 4 years ago, at the Butler Airport, not even 5 miles from here. It was an awe-inspiring event. We were just like, wow. But the one thing we noticed, we walked in there, and her and I, we're close. And the one thing we noticed that
hang on, isn't that the dude that sucked off Obama?
Like this. Every rooftop of every hangar had 3, 4, 5 guys on top of it.
When you say guys, snipers? Law enforcement with long guns.
Okay. Yes, and even some of them in the sniper position, just scanning everywhere. And my daughter turned to me.
To the point where you got there, you noticed them right away.
Immediately. It was the first thing she said to me. She goes, "Oh my gosh, Dad, look at this." She goes, "I never felt so safe in my life." Those were her exact words.
This is 4 years ago in the rally by the airport.
Correct.
The other airport.
Right.
Okay.
So she didn't come with me this time because she's eight months pregnant, and the heat and everything else. But she really wanted to. So that was so much on our minds there that we talked about it for, I don't know, we just talked about it. We were like so awe-inspired by that. Wow. First thing I did when I got here yesterday was I did a complete look around at every rooftop. And I said to myself, that's strange. I don't see one cop, sniper, nothing. I don't see anything. And I just thought that was kind of weird.
And at what time is this when you're sort of looking around trying to see what you saw 4 years ago?
It's probably about, 4 years ago, we noticed
today. Or yesterday. What time was that when you started looking?
Probably about 2 hours before he came on stage.
Okay.
But I didn't stop looking because it's something that was in my mind because of it was so noticeable back then, but it was also just as noticeable not being that way.
And then did you notice, because on that barn right there, that's where the law enforcement snipers were that engaged with the alleged assassin. Did you notice them?
I did not. I noticed nobody because I scanned every roof. And I just thought it was strange.
Okay, he must have been drunk. You couldn't see those guys.
I think most of the
there.
people at that rally were drunk. I think that, having been to January 6th, that was day drunk, lame Woodstock. Like it was.
Now-
It was like a music festival for day drunk, lame ass boomers. Yeah, that's the vibe at a Trump event.
The world now is a vampire.
Basically, your Trump rallies are
Sent to
a
drain Kid Rock.
Margaritaville at 8 p.m. anywhere in the world.
Kid Rock announced he is coming for your Bud Lights.
You fuck with Trump, you fuck with me.
Yeah, he's gonna shoot the fuck out of all those Bud Lights. It's gonna be fucking
It was
crazy.
water, dude. It was
But-
fucking 103 degrees in the middle of a field in Pennsylvania. They got water cannons all over the place. And I'm